In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we sit down, I just want to say a few words. Our community's hearts are broken over the loss of Milburn Police Department Officer Luke Lyons. We want to send our condolences to his wife, Sylvette, his 2 young children, his family, and his family at the Milburn Police Department. If we could just have a quick moment just to remember Officer Lyons. Thank you. And although our employees don't all live in this town, they're still part of this town. They're still our family. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Purvis? Here. Deputy Mayor Secretary?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a proclamation. Committeeman Cohen, you're scheduled to read.
Excuse me. Whereas amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, known by many as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a progressive, fatal neurodegenerative disorder in which a person's brain loses connection with the muscles, slowly taking away their ability to walk, talk, eat, and eventually breathe. And whereas every 90 minutes someone is diagnosed with ALS and someone passes away from ALS, and on average, patients diagnosed with ALS only survive 2 to 5 years from the time of diagnosis. And whereas ALS has no cure and people who have served in the military are more likely to develop ALS and die from this disease than those with no history of military service. And whereas securing access to new therapies, durable medical equipment, and communication technologies is of vital importance to people living with ALS, and clinical trials play a pivotal role in evaluating new treatments, enhancing quality of life, and fostering assistive technologies for those living with ALS. And whereas we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Ice Bucket Challenge through a renewed commitment to galvanize public awareness and support funding, leading to significant investments in ALS research. And whereas the ALS Association, as the largest philanthropic funder of ALS research globally, has committed over $154 million to support more than 550 projects across the United States and 18 other countries. And whereas our commitment to accelerating the pace of discovery remains unwavering, fueled by the hope that one day ALS will be a livable disease for everyone, everywhere, until we can cure it. And whereas ALS Awareness Month increases the public's awareness of people with ALS's dire circumstances, and acknowledges the terrible impact this disease has not only on the person, but on his or her family and the community, and recognizes the research being done to eradicate this disease. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township Committee of the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as ALS Awareness Month, and we call upon all Americans to join in supporting ALS research, advocating for increased funding, and standing in solidarity with those affected by this relentless disease. And it's signed by Annette Romano, the Milburn Township Mayor, on May 10th, 2024. I will be presenting this proclamation to June Schechner, whose family has been touched by this illness. She was unable to make it tonight because she is running a program for people with disabilities, and so that took precedence over being here. But I will present it to her actually tomorrow. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, reports. Just a reminder to the Township Committee to please just provide reports on matters pertaining to boards and committees that you serve as a liaison. Okay, I'm gonna go first. I just want to say a huge thank you to the CETA committee, Steve and Amanda, and all the organizations and committees that were part of Founder's Day on Saturday. It was a beautiful day. The rain held out. We had a lot of people participating, a lot of visitors. And just a thank you also to everyone that donated to stuff the bus for the food pantry. Your donations are greatly appreciated. And then just the Memorial Day Parade is on Monday, May 27th. We're stepping off at 11 a.m. at the high school. And we have over 20 organizations that are signed up and registered to participate in the parade. So it's going to be a great day and we'd love to see everyone. Deputy Mayor, would you like to go?
Sure. So Environmental Commission will be having a special meeting on Thursday here at Town Hall at 7 p.m. To discuss potentially phasing out certain gas-powered lawn equipment. There's going to be a lot of landscapers that were invited to participate in this meeting. So it should be a good informative event where, the Environmental Commission will be able to hear concerns of the landscapers and residents, and there'll be some speakers that are providing some education materials. So if you're interested, please attend. The planning board met recently and voted that the recent zoning change ordinance that passed on first read at the last TC meeting was not inconsistent with the master plan, which basically means they gave it their stamp of approval. No updates at this time for HPC or the zoning code examination committee.
Committeewoman Pruvis?
No reports.
Committeeman Stoller?
Sure, thank you. We'll start with the Mountain Valley Communication Centers Center. They received a proposal to evaluate what is needed for a potential move of the communication center from New Providence. The board will be reviewing the proposal in the near future, most likely at our July 17th meeting. The lease for the Mountain Valley Emergency Center is up in July 25, and we have controlled to extend the lease an additional 10 years. And the board is looking at the long-term future and placement of that center. Recreation Committee, the pool is opening. As hot as it was today, it'd be welcome. It's ready to go. The water's full and it's just heating up. Don't forget to register for your membership on Community Pass. The pool will be open from Memorial Day weekend through June 16th. Pool will be open 7 days a week starting on June 17th. Somebody asked me about the pickleball courts. They're on schedule to be completed sometime in July. So looking forward to that. Special Improvement District. For everybody, I saw a lot of you guys at Founding Day, huge success. We had a dozen community organizations participate with tables, dances, song, and poetry. The 12 mill wheels were unveiled. They were all designed and painted by local organizations. Explorer has completed the spring cleaning activities. Over 50 tree pits and 35 planters have been planted with spring flowers. And there was a major streetscape on Morris Turnpike. So if you drive down Morris Turnpike, you'll notice that they removed all the broken asphalt and replaced it with stone. And it starts a 12-week street cleaning pilot program. Next major event for Explorer is Girls Night Out on June 6th, etc. Affordable housing, Jared Canner will be addressing that. BOE, Board of Education, not much to add there. However, a new acting superintendent was designated last evening, Ms. Diskin, to replace Christine Burton. Joint fields, nothing to report there. Emergency dispatch we talked about. No real big updates on flood mitigation. That's my reports.
Sure. Wrapping up the book sale from the library, the numbers are in and they netted $17,000 from the book sale, which is pretty impressive. This year, they saw a record number of student volunteers, which was helpful because it's a lot of work to sort and catalog all those books. And this year, they tried something new. They had a Friday preview sale for educators, which was a big success, and they will be adding that to the book sale as a regular event next year. The other thing is they've announced that they will be holding a Pride celebration on June 8th at 2 p.m. But there will be live music, a fashion show, crafts, and food. And then on the Arboretum side, They were very proud of the fact that a team from the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum finished in first place in the World Series of Birding, which is a 24-hour event where you catalog all the various species of birds that you see. And so some of the staff from the Arboretum participated in that and came home with the first place trophy, cataloging somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200 different species of birds in the Essex County area.
Thank you. Just a few brief updates and announcements. On May 29th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m., the police department will be holding an information session here in Town Hall and via Zoom. Residents are invited to come out and speak with the police department. They're also going to present similarly to what they presented at their previous information session about tips on home safety, car safety, as well as some updates on initiatives that they're moving forward on. Just a quick update regarding Fairfield Drive. I know that this has been a long outstanding project with the township. However, not a lot of this is under our control currently. JCP&L, when we were out there in November, we discovered a conduit underground conduit on Fairfield Drive that was about 2 inches under the surface of the roadway. It was not safe for our contractor to continue working on curbs as well as doing a mill and pave of that roadway. We alerted JCP&L at that time of the condition. They came out, took a look at it, and then for 5 months later, had Utiliquest actually do a depth reading of that conduit. And we are finally getting to the point where we see a light at the end of the tunnel with this work, and we'll hopefully have completion of Fairfield Drive in the very near future. Just to provide some specifics, which we are happy to finally have from JCP&L. They have a scheduled outage next week on Wednesday, 5/29. That was previously communicated as Tuesday, but it is now Wednesday, May 29th. Which the area will be out of power for approximately 6 hours as they pull another conduit and de-energize a wire and re-energize another wire. This will be the completion of their work, which will allow us to start and remobilize our contractor to finish up some minor curb work that's on Fairfield Drive and then get the street milled and paved. We're looking at, fingers crossed, early June to get that all done. In addition, the township has done its bid out its 2024 road reconstruction projects. We received those bids last week. We anticipate awarding those on June 4th. One of the first jobs out of that work is Fairfield Terrace and Martindale to do curb work and drainage work. After that work is complete, PSE&G is responsible for the mill and pave of those two streets. PSE&G in a similar timeframe will be reconstructing those areas that were impacted in the Beechcroft area, curb to curb on those streets that they did work on. That will be sometime in mid to late June as well. The township held a town hall renovation meeting on May 13th, describing the idea of renovating this building or the potential of building a new building. All of that information is currently on the township's website under municipal projects, and we encourage residents to take a look at that. We tend to have the architect present at a future township committee meeting and hopefully have that project considered by the township committee in the near future. That is all I have to report, Mayor.
Mr. Cantor?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Just a couple quick fair share housing litigation updates. For those of you who've been following the fair share housing litigation, the court made a determination, and RPM, although it was widely reported that the township lost the motion and the developer moved for reconsideration of the motion. Developer wants the court to force the township of Millburn to build on the 9 Main Street site, on the DPW site. We oppose that motion. It's fully briefed. It's currently scheduled to be heard on Friday. That's the return of the motion. However, given that's the day before Memorial Day weekend, a lot of courts and judges are not hearing motions on that day.
Hopefully by tomorrow, we'll know if the court's gonna be hearing it at what time, and I don't know whether it'll be virtual or in person, or even if it will take place on Friday, but that motion is fully briefed. And secondly, part of the court's order was for the Township Fair Share Housing Corporation to provide alternative sites. So the special master could determine which sites were feasible. The township's planner submitted a report as a Fair Share Housing Corporation. The developer RPM also had a planner submit a report despite the court's order that they were precluded from doing so. The special master said he's going to consider the developer's report also. And today rebuttal reports were due, and the township submitted a rebuttal report to both the developer and Fair Share Housing Corporation. Fair Share Housing Corporation and the developer both expressed an interest that the DPW site was better than the alternative sites proposed by the township. That'll be decided by the special master. He's supposed to report back to the court, and I'll continue to update the public and this committee as more things go on. And if we do get the time for the court appearance on Friday, I'll let Mr. McDonald know, and he can obviously post it to the website, as I know there's a lot of interest. And I know there's been some residents who not participated, but who come to watch if it's virtual and or in person. I have no further report unless the mayor or anybody on the committee has any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a presentation now, Forgotten History Trail by Mr. Bob Gula.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So you have a handout that I just passed out, which is 2 pages. You can refer to it, but I'll summarize what's in here briefly. So my name is Bob Gula. I'm a 30-year resident of Short Hills with my wife Shelley and our 5 children. We have strong roots in the community, as I have been an active parishioner and CCD teacher at St. Rose of Lima and a Little League coach for 10 years. My wife grew up in town with her mom and dad, Marilyn and Chubb Jeffrey, and her 2 brothers, Michael and Andy. Since my retirement about 9 years ago, I've been heavily involved in local American history and my own family genealogy. I'm an active member of the Sons of the American Revolution, the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, and the Mayflower Society. During my retirement, I focused my efforts on researching the participation of my ancestors and the local communities in the battles that took place right in our backyard. The battles of Springfield and Connecticut Farms, which took place in 1780. These are often referred to as the Forgotten Victory Trail, which is actually what this presentation is called. Our organization, the Forgotten Victory Trail Association, was formed by David Siegfried and John Keyser in 2021 in anticipation of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, which will be celebrated in 2026. The Forgotten Victory Trail Association engages with local towns to bring focus on the Revolutionary War fighting that took place in Essex and Union counties, Elizabeth, Union, Springfield, and Milburn. Milburn was originally part of Springfield, along a route frequently referred to as the Forgotten Victory Trail. The battles of Springfield and Connecticut Farms in June 1780 were critical in the defense of New Jersey, and particularly Washington's forces, which were encamped out in Morristown. And they were also critical in the weakening of the British forces ahead of the Battle of Yorktown. The battles of Connecticut Farms and Springfield do not get the recognition deserved, as historical focus is placed on other large New Jersey battles, Trenton, Princeton, Monmouth, and the areas of fighting are now heavily urbanized and congested in our area. Our organization has also initiated a grammar school education program where I wear my Revolutionary Era military uniform and educate 4th and 5th graders on the local American Revolution, with emphasis on the role played by our communities during the battles of Springfield and Connecticut Farms. To date, I have educated over 1,000 students in Milburn, Chatham, Summit, and Westfield. We plan to continue this program through the 250th anniversary in 2026. I'm here today to explain another of our compelling initiatives, informational signage describing the role of Millburn during the American Revolution on the Forgotten Victory Trail. The signage will essentially create an outdoor museum. As I mentioned, Millburn, then part of Springfield, played a critical role as the last stand in June 1780 against the advance of British troops in New Jersey during the American Revolutionary War. There's actually a stone out front with a plaque that recognized that was the last stand of the British in New Jersey. Considerable fighting took place in this area in June 1780 during the Battle of Springfield. Town Hall, Egbison's Bridge, which is where the deli is now, and Little's Bridge, which is the Vauxhall Bridge down by Staples and Five Guys. Washington Rock and Hessian House also add to Millburn's patriotic history. Taylor Park will be an ideal location for signage given its proximity to downtown. It's got considerable pedestrian traffic and the fact that it's a stone's throw from where the fighting occurred in downtown Millburn. We have the support of the Millburn Short Hills Historical Society, and we have gained the unanimous approval of the Millburn Recreation Committee to proceed with a kiosk in Taylor Park at the entry to the park at Taylor and Main Street. We are proposing a kiosk that will highlight the fighting that occurred in downtown Millburn, and that will also show it within the context of the broader fighting against British troops that occurred all along the Forgotten Victory Trail. The informational kiosk will be two-sided, you can see in your handout, with maps and text indicating the relevant revolutionary locations and associated historical commentary. With limited space on our signage, QR codes can also be used for enhanced interpretations and videos. Project costs for the kiosk are estimated to be approximately $17,000 to $18,000, which we anticipate will be covered through fundraising as part of Millburn's committee to celebrate our nation's 250th anniversary in 2026. The signage itself will be designed and installed with the assistance of our partner, Crossroads of the American Revolution. Crossroads is a well-known New Jersey historical association, and they have helped implement many of these informational kiosks in heritage locations across the state of New Jersey. Other partners of the Forgotten Victory Trail include the Washington Association of New Jersey, Morristown National Historic Park, the North Jersey American Revolution Roundtable, and historical societies in Springfield, Union, professors of archaeology and history at Kane and Monmouth universities. We have additional plans for informational signage in Elizabeth, Union, and Springfield, which are all part of the Forgotten Victory Trail. There are three primary benefits of this project. One, we commemorate the brave sacrifices of New Jersey's American patriots on the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. Two, we educate our local citizens on the important role Millburn played in the American Revolution, which would of course complement the grammar school education initiative that we're fostering in the Forgotten Victory Trail. And three, we'll foster pride in the Millburn community and in our nation. I brought copies of the proposal, which include background, project benefits and costs, and a draft mock-up of both sides of the proposed signage. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Fuller?
I have a statement, just thank you so much for bringing this to our town. The history is fantastic, and I think it's just great for the kids and the children to be educated on this and actually follow the Victory Trail. So thank you, Mr. Gold.
It's remarkable because I just did Wyoming Elementary School this week,
Right.
and I had about 100 students, 4 different sessions, and it's remarkable how enthusiastic they are about this when they find out that right in their backyards, they were literally on Hobart Avenue, Continental troops up in the hills. There were militia from different counties. So the kids get very excited when they hear about the history that's in their backyard. So
are you asking the township committee for the entire project cost?
no,
Oh,
we expect to do fundraising. We want approval.
oh, okay.
Approval to do the sign in Taylor Park. We've already got the approval of the Millman
And
Recreation
you're
Committee.
fundraising for the entire cost
Yep.
of it?
We expect that private donors will probably cover the bulk of it. We might get some corporate assistance if we need it. But as part of the 4th of July committee for 2026, I'm expecting that we'll do some fundraising.
Great, and is that when do you plan on it going up?
It takes 6 months between design and then implementation. We'll try and do it sooner rather than later, so we'll probably kick it off in the next couple of months, get the design laid out, run it by the Historical Society of Milburn Short Hills, and then put it in the ground in the next few months after that.
Amazing.
Crossroads of the Revolution, which is Crossroads of the American Revolution, has done these in numerous locations, and they have it down to a science. And there's a prototype, which is pretty much what you see there. It's up to us to design the locations that we want to show on the maps. So one side I anticipate being local sites, so it'll be specific to Milburn Short Hills. And that'll show you, you are here, here's the other locations: Hessian House, Washington Rock, downtown Milburn Fighting, Vauxhall Bridge, Eggleston Bridge. And on the other side is the broader battles that took place around that same time: Battle of Springfield, Connecticut Farms, and Elizabethtown. So, and that depiction is not as scientific as the final product. The final product's going to be very much enhanced. This was my rendering without the professor's input, so I'll have some professors helping me with that.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else? Do we have consensus to take it to the next step, or
Definitely.
see what happens? Okay.
Well, isn't it just the approval, right, that they can do it,
I guess so.
right?
I think you're seconding what the Recreation Commission has already approved.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll keep Alex in the loop through the whole thing.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening, Jeffrey Feld. I live in the poet section. I grew up in Springfield. And one of the things is give them Watts Boys, and the smallest national park is located in Springfield. I was a Minuteman also. That kind of all happens. So I am really support that. And my wife's family fought at Bunker Hill. So we're not tied to New Jersey, we're Massachusetts. First, I'd like to also update and supplement the litigation update. First, if it's possible that the reports that were submitted to the special master be shared with the public, because I don't know if that would be a problem, that we see what the various parties had. As to the Bear Properties litigation, a settlement proposal was made to the township, was rejected. The arbitration that's scheduled for May 29th has been postponed because a motion was filed by plaintiffs for mediation. And I just want everyone to know where we stand. Prior to the meeting on Sunday, I sent an email to the council and various people, giving like heads up questions and comments as to what we're going to do tonight. Later on, you're going to be approving I guess a capital lease and a $92,000 lease contract. In the future, can you attach the agreement so the public knows what you're approving? Because $92,000 is a lot of money, and to be given access to a document this thick when you walk in, it's not right. I mean, it should have been attached that we have the opportunity, because this is the problems that we've been having in the past. I thought we tried to correct it. And as to the capital lease, I just think the public should be able to know what are the payments for 5 years. At the end of the lease, do we own the property? I mean, just to have a feel of what's happening, because you can't tell from the way that the resolution is drafted, it doesn't have the amounts. I just want to go to the bill list. There's 3 checks I highlighted. The first one was regarding now, because I made an open request to confirm whether we made the payment to Fair Share Housing of the monetary sanction that was entered in November. We were supposed to satisfy it within 60 days. Because of that action on the bill list, it shows that on the 10th of this month, in response to my open request, that we paid that amount. Why the delay? Do we have any claims against for recoupment? Rogat McCarthy's bond counsel fee, there's one bond I can't track down on the supplemental debt statement. That's the $7,000 one piece. I think it's now $7,500,000 piece. I can't find the ordinance that goes to. If you could help me there. As at 22 East Willow, there's questions about that. That goes back to the original approvals prior to this council. I guess my time is up,
Thank you.
but answer the questions. I hope this will be part of the record.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We had a nice day today. My name is Richie Seibert. I live in Melbourne. Very short. 2 things. One, I asked last meeting about how many potential tickets were given out when cars parked in front of the mailboxes. The street where you're not allowed to park. That was one. And 2, another pet peeve. So you're coming to make a left onto Essex Street and the crosswalk is on the right. So you can look, see if any cars are coming, but the people cross over here, so you drive over them. You understand what I'm saying? There should be a sign that says, please cross in the crosswalks, the nicely painted crosswalks. Mayor, you follow what I'm saying on that one?
I was trying to understand. where
So
we're
here's
coming
the
from.
train station. You're coming up, you're making a left onto Essex
Okay,
Street.
Essex, okay.
The cars are coming from this direction. You look to the right. You see there's the crosswalk. You see no cars coming. You go to make the left turn and the person's crossing the over here. You're really not looking this way. You should look both ways, but anyway, just simple things. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Wolk. I live in Short Hills. Lived here for about 25 years. Want to start off by just thanking all of you. You're all volunteers. You ran for office, and so it's wonderful that you've chosen to do service. And don't take anything I'm saying as complaining. All I'm trying to do as a resident of trying to make our community a better place and a more safe place. And so I want to talk about crime. I've been here before to talk about this issue. I talked to many, many residents, and the public does not think you, all of us are doing enough on crime. Despite what statistics may show of being flat or down year over year, they don't feel safe. And I was always taught that perception is reality, and that is a reality that we just have to do something about. That is our #1 obligation, I think, as elected officials. And so appropriate resources must be allocated. I've looked at the budgets of public safety and they've been flat for about 5 years. I've heard when asked, the police chief has said, if you could have any amount of additional resources, what else would you want? And he has said, I have everything I need. And I think our police department does a great job. We can't change bail reform. We can't change a lot of the New Jersey laws. I have great respect for these terrific men and women. But that answer is not acceptable. It makes no sense. If you are asked in any business for more resources to do your job better, the answer has to be, I want more. because any level of crime should be unacceptable. As a society, we should not accept any level of crime, and we can do things about this. Look, we can only control what we can control, and we're not gonna eliminate crime, but we can do things to move crime elsewhere. I see you've only got 30 seconds left. So I'm not here to just complain. I've got some solutions, and I've discussed some of these with others. In my neighborhood, I live in Dorison. We've had 5 or 6 robberies over the last 12 months. We've hired private security to patrol our area 8 hours a day. It's working great. We're getting along well with the police department. It's working. We ought to do that. The only thing that's going to deter this crime is a massive showing of police presence around our streets. There just aren't enough. Can I have a, okay. There just aren't enough. We don't have enough cars to do that. And so we can outsource this on a variable cost basis, doesn't hit fixed costs, don't have to give pensions, and it's simple. I provided Alex with contracts in the past. I know lots of these agencies, they do it for $30 to $35 an hour. We need a shock and awe strategy for several months. So these kids on the street, wherever they are, they say, oh my God, have you seen what's going on in Milburn? We shouldn't go there. We should go somewhere else. Last comment. I really think we should form a public safety committee in partnership with police and have representatives from the community so we can talk more about these issues
Thank you very
transparently.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Adam Bell. I'm here from Short Hills. I've lived here also about 25 years. I wasn't prepared to speak, but after hearing that you only get 3 minutes, I'm going to speak as well. So Tony over here shared some numbers with me, and it basically seems that for $15 to $30 per household, we could put 20 cars on the street immediately. There's absolutely no reason why people in Milburn paying the amount of taxes we are not feeling safe. This is a failure by all of us. I mean, yes, police are doing a great job, but they can only do so much. As a community, this is a shame that the #1 neighborhood in New Jersey, people are starting to leave because they don't feel safe. And it can't be, well, they're just breaking into the cars, you shouldn't leave your keys out. These are all excuses, all excuses. Well, they went into the house, but they didn't really steal anything. We can keep playing around, but at the end of the day, it's your job, our job to fix this. And until we fix it, you're gonna start losing people in town, the taxes are gonna go down, and we're gonna have a problem. And this is the #1 issue. You guys should be focused on security, #1. Yes, we can have the signs in town, that's great. But it's our job to fix the security. If we can't fix it, shame on us. This isn't a layup. We can hire 20 off-duty police officers for $15 to $30 a year per resident. We've done the math. He's done the math. And we're sitting around pussyfooting around here. It's terrible. And we should all be ashamed of ourselves, especially the committee that has the time to focus on this. And apologies if it comes off hard, but this is reality. The crime in here, to hear that last weekend someone broke into a house and the people were sleeping in Milburn, in one of the nicest areas in New Jersey. Are we kidding ourselves? This is not once. This is cars. These are people's houses. These are people's lives. And let's not keep our eye on other things. Crime is #1. It's about time we take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, David Cosgrove. I'm a resident. Wanted to comment just on the Citizen Affordable Housing Committee 2677-24. Just urging all of you to vote yes on that. It's going to be good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Baxter, I live in Short Hills. I've lived here for about 11 years now. Have 4 children in the school district. I'm here today because I'm concerned about the 7 million bond ordinance that was voted on nearly 2 months ago, I guess, for Paper Mill Playhouse capital improvements. It's split into 1.8 million for the parking lot and 5.2 million for building and ground improvements. And my main concern is with the latter. So overall, I'll just say up front, I don't think this is taxpayer money well spent. I think we could find much better ways to spend this money. So the reason we're even looking at giving them 7 million is because we rescued the paper mill in 2008 by purchasing their property for 9.1 million. And then Michael Stotts, the executive director of Paper Mill, in his public presentation in January, represented that a major maintenance and improvement to their facility is required, and I don't dispute that. However, under the lease terms between the township and Paper Mill is solely responsible for all maintenance. And I can understand why we did that. Back when we rescued them, we didn't want to take on the responsibility for looking after their premises. So they're responsible. The lease explicitly states that the town is not responsible for the maintenance on the property. Paper Mill have also stated they have 21.4 million available for capital improvements, so they don't need our $7 million. So putting aside their need for taxpayer money, Mr. Stotts also represented in his presentation two primary economic benefits why the town should contribute this money. First was that without the improvements, or more of a negative benefit, without the improvements, the town could be exposed to liability as we own the facility. And the second was knock-on economic benefits to the town from patronage of the theatre. As far as the first benefit is concerned, again, the lease completely indemnifies the town for anything that happens on the Paper Mill property. And since they're responsible for the maintenance anyway, there's no way the town can be liable. So that's a moot point. And as far as the second benefit is concerned, which is the knock-on benefit to the community of the Paper Mill, that's only an incremental benefit if, as part of their capital program, they're planning to increase the capacity of the Paper Mill and will get more patrons into the town, but they're not planning to do that. So the only kind of residual, again, negative benefit is perhaps we're at risk of losing the Paper Mill if we don't provide the 7 million, but that seems very, very unlikely. The Paper Mill pays no property taxes on the premises. It pays a limited uneconomic rent for the next 59 years, and they will certainly struggle to find a similar deal elsewhere. So in general, given the Paper Mill has the funds for the necessary improvements, they're clearly responsible for those improvements under the terms of the lease. I think we have much better ways of spending 7 million of taxpayer money. If you went out and asked every household to write a $1,000 check, which is what it amounts to, you wouldn't get very far in that case. We can do it. We've got affordable housing obligations coming up. We're going to have to expand the schools as a result of all of that. And I don't think we should be spending 7 million on Paper Mill.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Paulson. I live in Milburn. I am a resident, and I'm talking also on the Paper Mill, and I have a similar but slightly different perspective towards the whole situation, which is we heard Mike Stott describe the Paper Mill and the benefits to our town. I think it's a great program. I think it gives us benefits. I think there's a lot of positive things that come from the Paper Mill, and I think there could be benefits for the town to be buying the lot, helping with a continued situation where we're giving to them every year through tax abatements, not abatements, but they don't have to pay the taxes because we own the land. And this is a mutually symbiotic relationship, which I think can continue to grow. However, as Mike Stott pointed out, is that the Paper Mill's coming in a situation much different than it did in the past. They're financially sound. They don't have any particular immediate needs that have to get this done immediately. And they have a financial obligation to themselves to be planning ahead, to be taking care of the facility. And that planning could be from getting donors and so forth. I think the town may benefit from the parking lot, but when you look at the other benefits, the facade, fixing the drainage, the lighting in the parking lots, these are things which I think they could directly get donors for. I don't think the town council, which has all the things we've heard about tonight, which includes crime, affordable housing, and now the traffic, and other things that they could be focusing on, should focus on whether that is a good deal or a bad deal and acts as a proxy between the donors of Milburn and the Paper Mill. Instead of voting yes, I would propose that we let Paper Mill directly go to the residents. The residents who support them can directly donate to them. And therefore the funds will be speaking directly to what that individual wants their money to be used for, versus it going into taxes and having the decision made for them by those who they have elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone before we go online?
Good evening, everyone. Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg, former mayor, founding board member of Explore and current chairwoman of Explore. I'm here to express my concern that there is discussion scheduled for new business entitled District Management Corporation Board of Trustees. For the record, neither myself nor anyone on the board or the executive director have been approached by the Township Committee regarding this item. Due to the lack of engagement, I can only speculate as to the motive for this discussion. In that context, I'd like to provide a brief history lesson in tonight's discussion about restructuring the board and how it is selected. The DMDA was formed with the best of intentions and operated well for many years. However, breakdown in the elected board of the organization led to disunity, bickering, infighting, a lack of consensus about leadership direction, poor performance, and eventually the dissolution of that organization. In 2020, I led the effort to form a new SID and worked with my colleagues to find a system that would prevent a repeat of the failures of the DMDA. The current SID board operates under the control of the Township Committee. This oversight provides protection, structure, and maintains performance standards. We have created a fully appointed board, required that the office be in Town Hall, and hired a full-time executive director who provides stability, leadership, and a strong commitment to our community. Most importantly, the SID has no authority to pass a budget without township approval, has no land use or regulatory authority, and can only recommend appointees to the Township Committee. The Explore Board of Trustees and the Advisory Committee are composed of a wide range of property owners, business owners, residents, and township leadership across all 5 districts. What arose from the DMDA ashes is a SID that has far exceeded the expectations of the founders, including myself. Unlike the DMDA's elected board, our appointed trustees work collaboratively without rancor, have a common mission, and engage in professional development. In the wake of a failed SID, the economic downturn caused by COVID, the damage from Hurricane Ida, and a rapidly changing digital economy, Explore has been a godsend to the business community. Explore's commitment in making Millburn a better place has been impactful. The statistics of reduced vacancy, vibrancy, educational programming, and events speaks volumes. None of us were consulted about this agenda item, and it clearly does not speak to the transparency and honesty that was promised by this administration. There's no reason whatsoever to consider the change in the composition or organization of the Explore Board, and I'm disappointed that this is being considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. At the last TC meeting, I asked about the source of the 1.2 million reserve dollars offsetting the $7 million paper mill bond issuance. Instead of confirming that the reserve was taken from rent payments owed to the township, Committeeman Stoller replied, "Rewatch the TC meetings and look at the memos. It's all there. You probably missed it the first time, or second time, or third time, or fourth time, but maybe a 5th time will help you understand it." I thank Mr. Stoller because his condescension reminded me of an important lesson from my doctoral studies and from my stint as a quant. That lesson is trust, but verify. We should not simply trust that the paper mill deal makes sense. We should verify that the sales pitch is rooted in reality. A key argument Mr. Stoller presents in favor of the paper mill is the direct local impact, particularly for residents in town. At the TC meeting on March 5th, he said,
A direct impact on our restaurants in town of $3.8 million a year. That's $68 per patron for about 30% of the patrons that come. 190 shows, including matinees. That's about 55,000 visitors who come downtown, about 375 visitors per show.
Indeed, the $3.8 million and $68 per patron match up with this memo commissioned by the paper mill. But the claimed $68 spent per patron, excluding tickets, is curious. After digging up the cited source, I found that $68 is the average spending of attendees on nonprofit arts organizations in Phoenix, Arizona. For venues closer to home, like those in Morris County and Mercer County, New Jersey, the same study shows $30 per patron. I did do a quintuple take upon seeing this.
Did the study cherry pick an irrelevant data point to overstate their impact? Furthermore, rather than using actual ticket sales, the analysis assumes every showing sells out. Taken together, this economic impact could be oversold by about 3x. In the interest of transparency, accountability, and methodical decision-making, will you ask the paper mill to explain these discrepancies prior to future action? Upon reviewing the record, I also noticed that Mr. Stoller has characterized the $7 million bond as being self-funding. I assume he means that the annual rent helps to make the bond payments, but this neglects the fact that this rent is owed to the township as per the 2008 lease, irrespective of this new bond issuance. Just because dollars are fungible does not make muddying the accounting acceptable. You each were elected to be fiduciaries of a public trust. We, the public, rely on you to be good stewards of the public treasury, to exercise due diligence and to act impartially. You are not elected to cheerlead for special interests, and you should certainly not be parroting as gospel dubious analyses commissioned by entities demanding taxpayer handouts. Going forward, I also ask for a more respectful dialogue where questions from the public are met with answers they deserve, not deflection and disparagement. Thank you.
Anyone before we go online?
Hi all, good evening everyone. Chara Goyal, Short Hills resident. Well, I'm here again talking about the most priority issue, which is really concerning issue for me as well, to reduce crime. I live in a neighborhood where there have been many attempted break-ins and at least 7 in the last 6 months. And after speaking to my neighborhood residents and other people, all of us are literally scared of these attempted break-ins. And I asked in the last TC meeting, Committeeman Stoller, how are we doing with budget allocation to increase more police presence? And I urge that we definitely need more police presence. We need to feel safe and secure in the neighborhood. As an entrepreneur who is deeply involved in early childhood education, speaker on mental wellness and special needs initiatives, I can tell any break-in or attempted break-in leaves a deep-rooted scar in adults as well as teenagers, children, small children. So I would urge to please help provide that safety and security that will improve the mental wellness, which most of our residents are literally facing. And we are discussing day in and day out, on WhatsApp groups, on chats, and everywhere, like everybody's scared to even open a door for a person who's really looking for help. So that's my number one priority issue. And the second is, in the interest of transparency, I wanted to ask the additional sites for fair share housing that have been allocated or are being determined, did we hold any public session to provide that information and knowledge to the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Christine Vest, Melbourne Township, 27 years. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember everything, Mark Twain, and I agree with him. This core question is only for Ms. Romano, Mr. Cohen, Ms. Prupus, and Mr. Cantor. Maybe you can enlighten us on some things as it relates to legal. I'm asking this question as it relates to the applicability to run for a seat on the Essex County Democratic Committee. Before I ask, for some listening that may be unaware, this committee is responsible for choosing Millburn's Democratic Township Committee candidate for all elections, among other tasks that support the Democratic Party. It is an important role because each of the 2 district or neighborhood representatives voted in or put on the committee, if there's no challenger, listens to and carries the voice of your neighbors' needs and wishes for the township and their area. If you don't live in the district, you can't run in the district at the time of election. At least that's what I've been told, which makes sense because you want to be in the trenches regarding your community's pain points as a member representative. Each district has very different pain points, as you all know, as everybody knows in this town, and desires. So getting back to my questions for the 4 of you. First, the Democratic Party is officially putting on the ballot 2 people who I'm running against in Deerfield's District 12. Can you each please advise me if a district candidate for the Essex County Democratic Committee can run for an election or even be put on the ballot to run if it is known that they have a confirmed intent to move out of their district within a few weeks to months of the election date? Second, What are the rules? And are there any consequences if the Democratic Party members supporting this person knew in advance of this situation, and or if the person running in Deerfield's District 12 did this with intent to mislead voters in the district? My last question is, do any of the four of you know if one of the two people running against me, who was sponsored by the members of the Democratic Party, if their home has gone under contract? And if so, do you know if this person is moving out of town, moving within their district, or to another district? I think the residents and voters have a right to know the answer to this question. I will assume that no answer in this meeting is a confirmation that this party member is moving out of the district. I'm not sure how many minutes I have. I'm on a fast today, I'm a little dizzy. So I have 30 seconds. So I'm going to start on crime and public safety and end at my next 3 minutes. Which is more important, do you think, to a resident? Attending the latest show at the paper mill or not being the victim of a home invasion? Public safety is paramount, and no one bothered to contradict my statement in the last TC meeting that we've had 3 officers on overnight out of 44 patrolmen. There was something very wrong about this allocation logic. I was told that the police know what they're doing, and basically they are not questioned by a TC member.
Thank you.
I will finish later. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Charlie Bambara, 27-year resident of this town. Have to question the commitment, the responsibility and respect that some township committee members, town employees have to suggestions made by residents to improve certain things in town. One example, Committeeman Stoller said the town pool is open, it's heating up. 2 years ago, I made a suggestion to one of the representatives of the Recreation Committee to put solar collectors on the roof of the pool house to heat the pool water. You already own the pumps because you're circulating the water through the filters. It's just a matter of putting collectors up there. The pool would be heated up already now if they were there. And they're awfully cheap compared to some of the other projects you're talking about. 26 years ago, I saw an old dam in Taylor Park and I made some suggestions on how to improve it. I didn't get an acknowledgement. I got nothing back. My suggestion fell off the face of the earth. And now we have a dam that's inappropriate for the installation and the surface that it's in. I also came to understand that the township's heavy machinery could not be placed into the Rahway River to help excavate certain sections of the Rahway River that have silt. I took it upon myself to do some research. I recommended to certain town employees hydraulic fluids that were environmentally responsible and outfits that would come in and change the fluid and certify it. And I heard nothing back. The township's talking about leaf blowers. I made a request for ANSI standards, American National Standards Institute standards, applicable to them. And if the township could obtain some copies after I called the library and they said they wouldn't be able to do that, I had to call the town. No response, no acknowledgement that I even made a suggestion or asked a question. So this is a history that's been going on for me personally for 27 years that I've been a resident. I think that when residents make suggestions to the township, they deserve at least the courtesy of acknowledging, thank you for your concern, thank you for your question. We'll work on getting you an answer, or we can't answer it, something back again. I think the residents of this town, you have a base here of residents that are extremely intelligent. You're not utilizing it very well. Thank you.
Hi, Jean Pasternak, resident of Short Hills. I just want to offer my condolences to the Millburn Police Department and Officer Lyons' family. Very sad day for our community. I'm grateful to residents and Dr. Kong for taking so much time to study this paper mill $7 million taxpayer giveaway. I learned from the budget meeting that our CFO wasn't involved in the analysis, and I really feel you did not give proper attention to residents and their concerns before committing the tax dollars to bond deal. The more troubling data too is that's not clearly or transparently shared is that 20 months of rent was forgiven by the township during COVID, amounting to approximately $341,000. So putting all this together, it's a lot, of money that could be used to repave roads, deal with crime, et cetera. I'll restate my previous comments. It seems a nonsense to say that the bond pays for itself, which I heard over and over said by Mr. Stoller, because the annual rent payments from the 2008 lease are being used to offset the new $7 million bond issuance. I mean, we paid for the original $9 million bond issuance, the taxpayers did. So it seems like we're double counting here, and I really think it needs to be more transparent to the public what this money's being used for. I'd urge you to table any further actions regarding the paper mill deal until objective, dispassionate analysis can be done for taxpayers by this township committee. I also want to add, I really support the agenda item 267724, the Citizens Advisory Committee on Affordable Housing. And I'm really glad to see that there's going to be a discussion about the Crime Public Safety Advisory Committee. I also had suggested a while ago a Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, and I did it again after I attended the budget meeting. I wonder if you could provide an update on that. I know it's a lot of citizens committees, but I do think it's really important. We don't have a long-range capital spending plan, and we don't have a strategic plan for the township. We have a lot coming on stream. A committee of talented residents can assist you all in this endeavor, which is a critically important step in good stewardship in the future management of our town. And one other point about the Citizen Safety Committee, we have some really excellent people, dedicated, hardworking volunteers doing neighborhood watch. I hope that this level of commitment from just an individual who's overseeing that can be spread widely across the community, because without the whole community being involved, it's not going to really make a difference. And I do agree with Mr. Feld about getting information out prior to the meeting so that people can evaluate what you're discussing and approving. This is how we got into that black hole with the Fair Share Housing Agreement, and I'm sure that sunshine is desired by all here, so can we please have it? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Al Carlin, a 30-year resident, along not a property owner or business owner. I believe that on June 4th, we have a primary in Essex County, and it's very, very important that everyone gets out and votes. There are several candidates running for Senate. Take a look at what they are saying and what they are not saying. If you've gone on New Jersey Public News, several people talk about genocide without even knowing what the real definition of genocide is. And I could go on what genocide really is according to the United States government, not according to the government of South Africa. Let me be clear. I've heard this word genocide according to 18 USC 1091, so forth, of what genocide is. Where does the word genocide come from? 1944, and how it's being interpreted, not by South Africa. So I implore everyone to go out and vote on June 4th and look at the candidates. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening. Perry Urso, Upper Milburn Avenue. So why is it necessary to veto Oprah? If there's nothing to hide, then there would be no need to veto. Would you agree? If it wasn't for attorney resident Mr. Feld's noise, the public would not have been enlightened, and the public would not have the right to speak prior to official action. It was a big mistake that the prior TC members treated Ms. Stone and myself so poorly and threatening to have us removed from a meeting in August 2020. Thank you, Mr. Feld, for knocking on our doors and coming to our defense. I am aware that this body and prior TCs have been afforded the very same defense. That is one offer that should not be ignored. So I ask this body if they will be putting on a resolution on the table for consideration this evening, considering it to be urgent to walk on a resolution tonight or the next meeting agenda to support the veto Oprah bill. I'm surprised Mr. Cantor's reports did not reflect the Bear property management litigation, because today we were notified that May 29th arbitration has been stayed pending resolution of our motion for mediation. This gets me back to the Judge Moore said in 2020 that this matter should be mediated, not litigated. Also, the community should know that we've made a statement proposal that did not involve money to be paid to Bear Properties Management. It is about the validity of the expanded appointed 5-district SID under state law. It was rejected by the majority of the TC members. Can you explain for the members of the public as for your reason to prolong and spend taxpayers' money on this case? A case where the SID executive director has twice stated publicly that the state has directed Millburn to redraw the boundaries of its Main Street, New Jersey application supporting the SID. Lastly, I am more curious over concerned, number 2, under new business. Ms. Lieberberg's statement was not only disturbing, but rather disappointing. The lack of transparency began under her mayorship, and there has been absolutely no SID oversight whatsoever, not at all, niente. Grazie, buonanotte.
Thank you. Oh. I will now close public comment. Does anyone have any want to respond to any public comment? Deputy Mayor, would you like to go first?
Sure, let's see. Mr. Feld, I agree with your comments that things like the police staffing study budget proposal should be in the agenda packet that is distributed prior to the meetings. I actually spoke with Alex and Christine about this, and it's something we can look into. I think one of the challenges that Christine is having is, who's going to make a decision as to what documents can be shared with the public versus what should be confidential, because there are sometimes things in our packet that aren't for public consumption. So I am going to try and work with them to see if we can come up with some ideas. I mean, maybe we could have these things reviewed by Attorney Cantor. I would also, love it if other members of the TC would perhaps support the idea of having things like these proposals be shared with the public, because if we're going to vote on it tonight, you might as well see what's in it. Let's see. Mr. Seibert, I am not sure how many tickets were given out. Maybe Mr. McDonald can provide an update on that, or if not, maybe he could direct Mr. Seibert to someone in the police department that might be able to answer his question. Mr. Wolk, I agree. I feel that many residents feel that not enough is being done about crime. And I agree. I know the statistics seem like they're trending in the right direction, but more and more so, I get calls from residents that are concerned. They don't feel safe in town. There's been a number of home invasions recently. There was one very recently where the residents were at home in their bedroom and the perpetrator broke their glass door, entered and actually came into their bedroom, and then they had to be chased out. This happened on Randall Drive. As you can imagine, when people hear about incidents like this, they're very concerned. And quite honestly, they should be, because our town is definitely being targeted.
Mr. Wolk, I agree, we probably do need some sort of shock and awe type campaign. We need to have, I suggest that we maybe use consultants or contractors to increase the number of cars on the street. And we should try this for a few months and see if it makes a difference. Because obviously, whatever we've been doing is not helping residents feel safe. So we need to try something else. I agree with you, Mr. Wolk. I too am disappointed that the police chief did not jump on the opportunities he had to ask for more funding. I know that when I was elected, Mr. Stoller and Ms. Prupus and I met with the chief before we took office, and we said, look, we got elected on a platform of, fighting crime as one of the tenets. And we said, what do you need? Every option is on the table. You could literally ask us for a helicopter and we'll think about it and consider it. And I was told by the chief, as he said last year in the public information session, that he had everything he needed, and when he needed things, he would ask the town and they would provide it. I think that demonstrates a lack of creativity. In the business world, as you said, when it's time for budgets, there should always be other things you want. There should be a wish list. You might not get it, but there should be a wish list. And we don't have that here, and that's disappointing. So I'm hoping that the other TC members would be willing to consider having some private security, augment our staff. I think it's something that we should look into. And additionally, we are going to be talking in new business about a citizen crime advisory committee. Mr. Cosgrove, thank you for your support of the Affordable Housing Committee. Hopefully we'll get that passed tonight. Mr. Baxter, I wholeheartedly agree. I think this town has plenty of better ways to spend its money as opposed to giving it to the paper mill for their vanity project. You are correct. The lease terms say the paper mill is responsible for the maintenance. Maintenance that they didn't keep up with over the years, and now it's going to cost them more as a result. And yet they've come to the town, and 4 of these committee members have decided to give them a bailout. Again, basically giving away money so that they can make repairs. And then on top of it, they have this vanity project for this giant glass atrium and a nice new lobby and this, that, and the other thing. And quite honestly, it is exactly what I said. It's a vanity project. It's not going to increase the amount of seats. It's not going to increase the revenue going to the paper mill. The paper mill doesn't pay taxes to the town, so we're not going to get any additional revenue that way. The lease terms are not changing. So quite honestly, it's just a giveaway and we're getting nothing back. Furthermore, because the paper mill is not going to leave town if we don't give them the $7 million, all of the positive benefits that they may give the town are not going to go away. And this ties in with what Mr. Kung said. I find it interesting that economic impact study, as you pointed out, it looks like they cherry picked the data. I think you're absolutely right. And I think we need to get some answers from them on that, because it seems like they picked misleading figures based on data from towns in other states and use that to justify their economic impact. And I think it's grossly overinflated. So I really do think we should have the leadership of the paper mill come in here and answer for what was in that proposal, how they got those numbers, and why they feel that economic impact study is correct. And I'm also just extraordinarily disappointed with other members of this committee, specifically the member of the committee who negotiated with the paper mill. I feel that more due diligence should have been done. It shouldn't have required a resident to go and dig into the documentation and look at all of the footnotes to figure out that the paper mill's numbers were inflated. Ms. Goel, I agree. I think this crime issue is definitely weighing on the mental wellness of many in the town. You've heard my suggestions, and hopefully we can get some positive action going up here. Ms. Best, you addressed the questions to everyone except me, so I don't feel I can answer that. But I will say, I do think in general, in order to serve on a county committee of any party, you do have to be a resident. Now, whether that means you can get elected and then move 2 days later, that I don't know. So maybe Mr. Cantor could advise on that. Mr. Bambara, I I've had conversations with you about this as well. I appreciate your comments. And I am sorry that you feel the township staff is not giving you the respect that you deserve or a response. I would encourage Mr. McDonald to make sure that when residents communicate ideas, there's at least an acknowledgement. Thank you for your suggestion. We'll look into it. You know, we're all friends and neighbors, and we should make sure that we're being respectful. Ms. Pasternak, the Citizen Budget Advisory Committee is going to be on for new business next meeting. It was originally going to be on this meeting. The mayor and I felt that there was a lot on the agenda tonight, and so we thought there wouldn't be too much harm in carrying that to the next meeting, but that is absolutely going to come up on the next meeting. Let's see. Ms. Urso, I agree with you. I too have concerns about the Oprah legislation, you know, that is now, you know, awaiting the governor's either signature or veto. I would love it if this committee could put together a resolution urging the governor to veto that piece of legislation. I think Oprah is important. I do think sometimes it's abused, and we should try and make sure that doesn't happen. But I do think that there are many instances where it is beneficial to the public, because, you know, it's very important that people understand how their elected officials are making decisions that affect them. So with that, I will rest.
Question for Alex. I'm asking Alex if there's a way that if that would fall under any ability to have a closed session of a TC with the chief to talk.
How about this? I'll answer it when it's my turn. I'm gonna do a quick search real quick. But
Okay,
I presume
and
there's a
if there is some way that we could do it under a closed session, I would say that we should do that as soon as possible to address the crime issue and also the potential of hiring another service to the patrol. And then Ms. Bess, because you asked me a direct question, I do not serve on the Democratic County Committee in Millburn Short Hills, and I don't know anybody, like I don't know who are the representatives, so I cannot answer your question. And I don't. I thought you used to serve on my apologies. Yeah, I do not serve on it. I don't know who does. I don't know who you're talking about, and I wish you the best of luck in your campaign. Yeah.
Mr. Stoller?
Sure, this should be fun. Christine Best, I agree with you 100%. You should have full visibility on if somebody's gonna be in that town or not. I'll actually defer that to the Democratic Township Committee, but I agree that you should have that visibility. Charlie Bambera, 100% agree with you on a lot of these. I always put a request prior to Township Council into SDL portal so that you can actually show, here's where I've put it in and manage that and walk it all the way through the process. That's what it's there for. And then, you know, you have a written record of submitting it and how it went through. Mr. Wolk and friends and such, 100% I agree. Priority number one is safety. Let's not conflate or prioritize. There's no money we won't spend on crime. And I 100% agree that no one should feel unsafe. And to Ms. Goel's point, you know, my home was robbed in Florida. My home was attempted robbed twice here. So really it is a mental problem and such. So I agree with you there. We will spare no expense to make sure that we're stopping the crime, kind of diverting it and hardening our community. A couple of things we have done, which may have not been communicated, is one is this municipal resolution ordinance we passed where we can actually take municipal action versus the county and lock people up and actually hold minors' parents accountable. And that should be coming online soon. And then in addition, cameras, cars, county sheriffs, et cetera. You're throwing the entire kitchen sink at it. I agree 100%. in discussing the paper mill, I don't really want to go down. I think there's a lot of misinformation, mischaracterizations. Obviously, the demographics of our town are changing. Obviously, Mr. Kong, who's married to Mr. Sacamande, obviously you don't go out to eat if you think you can eat out in Millburn for $30 a person. So it's impossible to eat out in Millburn for $30 a person. All those numbers, I went out and met with Fiamma, I met out with La Pergola, with Basilica, with Moonshine, you name it, we met with them. Their number one priority was the paper mill. And this whole idea of a giveaway is completely bogus. It is self-funding in that we're taking in $400,000 of revenue, Stuart, $400,000 of revenue of lease and parking revenue over the next 30 years plus from the paper mill. Our payment on a bond is $197,000 per year. So 400 minus 197 leaves $200,000 of surplus. So I'm not sure how that's done. Mr. Kong, I know where did I mean to hurt your feelings. I know you went to MIT and I know you went to Harvard. So just the whole idea of you not understanding just took me for a loop. So I thought it would be nice. And for everybody to go back and rewatch the information section, and you can watch number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you have to understand all of the salient points of why four of us passed the paper mill. And I know it's a big deal in the Chinese community with WeChat. You told me directly to my face that the Chinese don't want it. And you know, Frank told me that if I don't vote for the dissenter for the HBC, they're gonna jump board. That's fine. I don't need somebody to hold my hand on decisions I make on this dais. It's just absolutely not needed for me. What else? A couple other issues just with that is that you've not been communicated is all $39 million of the CapEx improvements that happen on day one after it's done come directly onto our balance sheet. We now own 9.2 contiguous acres at the paper mill. To leave one of the properties in the middle out is not a good thing. Also too, if they do leave, and listen, they're killing it right now in terms of the performances they're putting on. Summit, Westfield, Montclair, everyone is chomping at the bit to have a draw like that. That is considered the jewel of Millburn, right up there with our school system, right up there with our location to New York City, and low crime. We have to get back to that low crime part to put that out. So what else I got here? That's it for now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I always seem to go last, so I don't need to rehash everything that's some of the things that have been said. I was going to speak for the SDL portal to Mr. Rivera. I've used it myself, and that way there's a record, and you can always, you know, with all the follow-up and whatnot, and you know, you won't be ignored, and if you are, it's an easy way to escalate that. I'm also anxious to hear what Mr. Cantor said, because I agree with Ms. Prupas that if we can have a meeting with if legally we are allowed to have a closed session for that, I'm in full support of that. As to Mrs. Urso, I don't, in my mind, I don't see the fact that the Main Street application, which is for a particular part of town, needs to be the same as the boundaries of the SID. Those are two separate things. The Main Street application is for one of the districts of the SID. And I know that's, you know, I know everybody sometimes people like to tie things together, but just because two events happen doesn't mean that one is related to the other. Also, with regard to Oprah, to correct some misinformation, even if the governor does not veto the bill, Oprah is not going away. The system has been abused, and that bill will provide some structure to what goes on. But I get a report every month of all the Oprah requests, and I don't think any of them that people will still be allowed to request documents. None of that is going away. I think there'll be some structure, some recognition of technology that has occurred since the Oprah bill was first devised, but it is not the misinformation that continues to be spread.
Mr. McDonald?
All I'll say is that I will look into Mr. Seibert and Mr. Bambara's concerns and get back to them.
Thank you, Mayor. As to the question regarding the county committee seat, if the address on the petition was accurate at the time and it's within district and it was certified to and the clerk approved it, they can run for county committee at that address. If at any time they cease to be a resident, at that time a vacancy will occur in that district upon no longer being a resident district, because residency is a requirement. And that position will be filled by the chairperson of the party upon vacating. I don't know any of the facts. I don't know that the house
I
is.
understand what you're thinking.
I don't know if the house for sale. I don't know any underlying facts. I'm just giving you the law.
Thank you.
As to Committeewoman Krupa's question regarding whether or not we go into close to discuss these matters, the Open Public Meetings Act does have exceptions to exclude the public. Number 6 is tactics and techniques utilized in protecting the safety and property of the public. This would fit under that exception, so we could discuss this in closed session.
I think that we should schedule that as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Agree.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything else in my report unless anybody in the committee or mayor have any questions for me. Thank you.
I don't have anything else to add, and in response to Ms. Best's question, I don't have an answer for you either, so, sorry. Okay. Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda?
No.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-141 through resolution 24-147, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-148?
Yes, I have some comments. So just so the public is aware, this resolution is for a police staffing study. And that's a little bit of a misnomer because it's more than that. This study seeks to not only analyze the staffing needs of the Millburn Police Department, but also its core principles and management practices. The firm that has been selected for us to vote on has done work throughout the country. They've worked for large cities such as Tacoma, Washington, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Miami Beach, Florida, Fort Worth, Texas, Columbus, Ohio, and San Jose, California. They have a deep panel of experts that are going to be able to look at everything the police does from top to bottom. And they'll be able to make recommendations and give us a detailed 5-year strategic plan. I'm sharing this information with you because fortunately, it is in the packet, but unfortunately that was not distributed in advance. So if anyone would like a copy of that, please let me know. I'd be happy to get that to you. But this is something that we have been asking for, since we got into office this year. So I'm delighted that it's up for a vote, and I encourage my fellow committee members to support it because this is the first step towards, really looking at whether we need more officers and, whether there's a way to better utilize the resources we have.
Anyone else?
No, I couldn't agree more. It's a study that's going to give us complete transparency and visibility. That's what Frank and I ran on to understand the ebbs and flows, and also to have another set of eyes on it as well. And I think it's a beneficial ordinance.
I agree, it's beneficial, but let's make no mistake, this is a longer term action and certainly does not eliminate the need to do something tactical in the interim.
Absolutely.
When is the staffing? When will it be due back? When will we get the study back? to us?
5 months. Very honest. 5 months. Something back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I just said, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-148?
So
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-149?
Yeah, Alex, can you please go through the benefits of this? And why this is a good thing, and rather than leasing rather than buying, all those kind of, those kind of decisions.
Sure. So we've been looking at this option for a while now and had previously discussed it with the finance subcommittee as well as when we met with the committee on the budget individually. The idea behind leasing vehicles is so that we can turn over our fleet quicker and receive funding for and better resale value on those vehicles. So what we're looking at is a step program to lease anywhere between 5 to 10 vehicles a year. I think we have a fleet, an eligible fleet of 50 vehicles that we can lease. The benefits to this are one, certainly lower maintenance costs on those vehicles, better fuel efficiency on those vehicles. Part of the town hall fleet, whether that's tax assessor, building department, things like that, is to start to convert them to plug-in hybrids or electric vehicles, which will allow us to do that more quickly through this program. Generally, what happens now is we may purchase a vehicle through capital, which certainly then also eats up some of that capital funding for other things in town. And those vehicles may be held on to for 20, 25 years, depending on the vehicle and the use. And so you start to see a major degradation in the maintenance or in the fuel efficiency and then increased costs in the maintenance. This program will allow us to lease a vehicle for 5 years. We still have the option to purchase the vehicle at the end of that lease, but sort of trade that in and receive funds for that. Over the long term of this program, it'll produce savings in that effort. This is something that other communities have been venturing into. We are in no way committed to doing this for 5 years or 6 years, but I think it is a beneficial step to see if this is a way to move forward with the fleet.
And can you review the 50 cars, what departments they belong to?
Fire, DPW, and town hall. So fire has civilian type vehicles. They're inspectors. The battalion chief vehicle, which is a sort of a command vehicle. Those types of vehicles. Public works for anything that is generally not a large mason dump truck. Anything less than that will be eligible for lease, and then certainly the vehicles that are in the town hall fleet.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-149?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purpose?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Secondandi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-150?
Sure. So just so the public is aware, this bill, A2000, is a bill that will impose mandatory minimum penalties for juvenile offenders if they are caught with doing certain auto theft related crimes or breaking into a house to try and get keys to steal a car. It is co-sponsored by our Assemblywoman Bavoli, one of our Assemblywomen, I should say. And it's a great bill, and it's a great first step in trying to undo some of the damage that's been done over the years by the catch and release policy. So hopefully this will pass. I think it's great for our township committee to be having an official resolution supporting this. Hopefully it'll pass quickly, and then hopefully we'll start to see some downstream impacts.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-150?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purpose?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Secondandi?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Absolutely.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Committeeman Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2675-24.
I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2675-24, capital ordinance of the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, New Jersey, authorizing the making of various public improvements and acquisitions in, by, and for the township, appropriating therefore the sum of $1,712,000 and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from the capital improvement fund of the township and from the township's capital reserve for police and capital reserve for DPW. So the ordinance covers about 6 projects, covering the fire department, DPW, the police department. They're all reasonably, the public works project is the largest at 662,000, but they're all, it's a collection of relatively small projects that are being grouped together into one capital ordinance. Go ahead, sure.
I would just like to point out a few things with regard to this capital ordinance. This is our annual capital ordinance that that is funded through the budget. This is essentially cash capital items. Just to point out a few things, one is that the Department of Public Works is currently working with Springfield, and we're hoping to have a shared pricing agreement, shared purchasing agreement regarding the largest portion of that capital, which is the sewer flusher. And so we are hopeful that we will be able to split that cost with Springfield. In addition, just under the police department, I'd just like to point out that it is for the acquisition of additional license plate readers. And for engineering, it is drainage, and there's a lot of also pool recreation improvements, including lighting at your apartment.
The number in the ordinance assumes we will not be sharing it with.
That is correct. Yeah, correct.
So there would maybe, if we do, then there'll be unused money that would then
go back to the capital improvement fund, correct?
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamani?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Committeeman Stoll, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2676-24.
Thank you. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2676-24, ordinance creating a temporary open container area. This is for the Town Hall Plaza that we're doing as a compromise to closing down Main Street. I've seen the plan so far. It's tables, chairs, lights crisscrossing, zigzagging the entire street, multiple tents, bands have been programmed, and there's going to be so many great events in terms of different nights. They're going to have lobster roll night, sushi night, things along those lines, so the family can come out over that period of time, bring a bottle of wine, BYOB, and enjoy the live music that's going to happen down there. It's all going to be roped off so the kids can go play their games, etc. And that's starting on July 2nd. When we're actually going to make an amendment to move it up one Tuesday to July 2nd. Any questions? I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so I'd like to make a motion to amend it to July 2nd date.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamani?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamani, you are scheduled to sponsor.
No, then I have to-
Oh, I'm sorry.
A motion to approve as amended
Oh,
So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve as amended
and set a public hearing date.
with the public hearing date on June 18th, 2024, as in accordance with law and published in the item.
Second.
roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamani?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamani, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2677-24.
I'd like to present ordinance entitled ordinance number 2677-24, establish Citizen Advisory Committee on Affordable Housing. Just a brief explanation. This is a committee that's going to be advisory in nature. They may potentially get access to confidential information as we are going through the affordable housing planning process. This committee is going to be geared towards next round, and notably, the committee is going to have resident members from each of the 5 elementary school areas of the township. So that way we get representation from all different parts of town. This is something we've been working on for a while, and I'm very happy that we have it before us. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first
I
reading.
just have a question.
Sure.
Assuming that this passes, Christine, do you have to change the volunteer interest form? To ask people what's, because I wouldn't know from an address, and we don't even get the address, what school district they belong to. So you'll change the volunteer interest form accordingly?
I think that's good for all the boards and committees, actually. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good piece of information to have to make sure that all the boards and committees are kind of represented throughout the town. So I think that's a great addition to the volunteer interest form.
And I have a question as well. In terms of, is it 2-year periods or is it?
As per the ordinance, there are the detail here, because I want to say it exactly correct. Yes, they're a 2-year period, and there's going to be some staggering of that as well.
Okay, good.
Initially. Yeah,
Initially, and just for the audience too, there's gonna be 2 township council members as well on it.
2 township committee members, yeah.
Town committee.
I know, it's a 3-year.
It's a 3-year term.
It's a
however,
3-year
it's
term.
staggered.
Yeah, so the first year,
is staggered.
right,
Right.
but
Yes.
overall, it's a 3-year term.
2-year term, yes. So actually, they're, right. 2 residents for a 3-year term initially, 2 for a 2-year term, and 1 for a 1-year term initially, and then I guess there'll be 3-year terms. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
All right, I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024.
So moved, or second,
Second,
oh, sorry,
that's okay.
second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Rufus,
yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2670-24.
27-24. Yeah, this is the one that we're gonna table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just read the piece, or move to adjourn it. To table it till the next meeting. Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing in consideration of adoption of ordinance 2670-24 entitled an ordinance of the Township of Millburn, County of Essex, authorizing the Township of Millburn to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Paper Mill Playhouse for 20 Brookside Drive to Tuesday, July 16th, 2024, Millburn Township Committee meeting, at which time the public hearing is scheduled, seeing the township is waiting to obtain ownership of the property.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Rufus.
yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Mayor, just for the record, there'll be no further notice of the public hearing. This is your notice of the public hearing. That'll be on July 16th, 2024.
Thank you. Okay, ordinance 2671-24. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2671-24. An ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn, Chapter 11, Tree Preservation. The purpose of this ordinance is to make permanent changes to the Township's Tree Preservation Code. The Tree Preservation Code, including various fees and definitions, has not been updated since 2015. The following revisions will reflect the increase in tree prices, fees for tree removal, a desire to protect trees on construction sites, and establish a registration process for tree removal companies to ensure quality tree work in the township. In addition, several definitions have been added to the tree preservation ordinance to further guide residents and tree companies doing tree-related work or general construction in the township. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. Okay. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title, passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Purpose.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Okay, ordinance 2672-24. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2672-24, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milburn, Chapter BH4, Retail Food Establishments. The purpose of this ordinance is to make permanent a change to Chapter BH4 Retail Food Establishments to establish a reinspection fee. The State New Jersey Retail Code NJAC 8:24 requires that the local health authority inspect every retail food establishment as often as it deems necessary. In order to ensure compliance with health and safety standards of the state of New Jersey, this ordinance will establish a reinspection fee of $150. A new section BH4-2.11 will be established under Chapter BH4 for this purpose. This existing licensing fee for retail food establishments will remain in effect. Tonight is the time for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open.
Again, my name is Jeffrey Feld, in the poet section. I have some questions. I understand you're amending, increasing the inspection fees, but do we have inspection fees for other food establishments in a similar Livingston reinspection fee ordinance? Because in Livingston, they have 4 classes, we only have 2. Because I think right here is, are food manufacturers excluded? Because we do have a food manufacturer, originally was in downtown, now it's down lower. Are they excluded from inspections? I don't know if we've expanded our inspections for them. Or home cottage food preparers excluded, because we're seeing more people are advertising that they manufacture food and sell for retail. Are they subject to inspection? Are nail salons, hair salons, barbershops, and cigar lounges excluded from health inspection and inspection fees? I mean, if we're just doing the retail food, shouldn't we also be looking at the inspections of nail salons and barbershops and the cigar lounges to see if they are also getting their health inspections? And if they failed the first one, would they be subject to an increased inspection? I just want to have some kind of more consistency, but also focusing on the food manufacturing, because we found out in the last 2 years that we do have a food manufacturer in town. Thank you.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Wait, can we respond to comments that were made? Does that happen now? What happened now? I think Mr. Feld brings up some valid points. I don't know if the health inspector does all of those things, and if they have to go back to re-inspect, would we be increasing? I mean, why are we just doing it?
Well, all I'm gonna say is that this was a recommendation from your health officer, that this is the concern that they had with regards to food establishments. It was not brought forth as any other issues or any other concerns regarding reinspection. So I'm assuming we're addressing an issue that they have noticed, and that's why it's limited to that.
Got it.
And Alex, can you just follow up on this
Okay,
question?
yeah.
And if we need a supplement, a second ordinance to cover those, we can certainly do that.
Sure.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Purpose.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2673-24.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2673-24, temporary closure of Town Hall Plaza between Essex Street and Milburn Avenue pursuant to NJ.SA.4067-16.9 in the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, New Jersey. The purpose of this ordinance is to establish a temporary street closure pursuant to 40:67-69 on Town Hall Plaza between Milburn Avenue and Essex Street for outdoor dining and other permitted uses beginning July 1st and ending September 2nd, 2024. Tonight is the time for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. There's no one on.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
yes.
Ms. Prufus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Okay, old business, historic designation process revision. Mr. Petto? Judy?
Good evening, Mayor Romano, members of the Township Committee. Graham Petto here this evening, Township Planner. This draft ordinance before you, which of course is not yet on for introduction, but for your consideration, is a product of the Zoning Code Examination Subcommittee, of which Mr. Sakamandy is a member and participant, as well as Mr. Cohen. The ordinance in its draft form does a couple of things just to improve the process by which the Historic Preservation Commission will execute designations of historic properties, to provide a little bit more clarity within the ordinance and define the process. I'm happy to answer any questions that any members may have or any additional insights. That
Sure, so this, by my read of it, it actually has a second notification period that'll go to residents, right? It gets a notification letter before, and then it goes to the HPC for public comment, and then if the Township Committee takes it up, there's then a second notice that goes out, correct?
Yeah, so essentially, so a couple things. One is the HPC, upon receipt of a nomination report, must schedule a meeting at which they will review the nomination report for its completeness and content to ensure that it is consistent with the requirements set forth in the ordinance. So that would be an advisory review. There is no formal action taken. The commission would do that at a public meeting and then move forward with a public hearing process whereby residents of the proposed designation site would be served certified notice. Public hearing would be scheduled. The documents would be available for public inspection. And then the HPC would hold the public hearing, at which point they would make a recommendation report to the Township Committee, who would receive that document. And if the Township Committee moves forward, that would become an ordinance and it would follow the general ordinance course whereby there would be a public hearing at the second meeting. So yes, there would be two public hearing components.
And then would it have to go back to the planning board?
There is in the intervening period following introduction by the Township Committee, as this is a land use provision, the planning board would opine on the proposed designation, which is an ordinance for its consistency or inconsistency with the Township Master Plan.
So it's about a 4 or 5 step, lost count, but a 4 or 5 step process.
That's correct.
Start to finish.
And then there's a mechanism that the affected area of the designation or the proposed designation could vocalize their either support or non-support of it.
That is correct. Yeah, the draft ordinance before you makes reference to that by citation to the municipal land use law contains a section that allows for a protest provision against a proposed zoning modification. The proposed ordinance before you this evening just makes reference to that section within the municipal land use law.
No, go ahead.
Is that transparency? What is that, and how do we understand what that protest provision is? Because for complete transparency, unless they understand what it is, how do they know what it is? They have to go hire a lawyer and look it up. What is that? Just tell me what it is.
Yeah, so the citation, so just to answer your question first, the citation within the proposed ordinance, lists exactly where that is. But you do need to go into the municipal land use law section to identify that language. And just for everyone in the room, it's 40:55D-63 notice and protest. And just for the benefit of everybody here, this is a section that's applicable to all zoning modifications. Historic overlay or historic designations are considered a zoning overlay. So this is a zoning modification. And the protest section, I can read it aloud. It says a protest against any proposed amendment or revision of a zoning ordinance may be filed with the municipal clerk, signed by the owners of 20% or more of the area one of the lots or land included within such proposed change, or two of the lots or land extending 200 feet in all directions therefrom, inclusive of street space, whether within or without the municipality. So if that 20% owner of record files a protest, then that goes to the clerk, and that must accompany the report as it proceeds through the process. So the township committee would see that there's a protest lodged, and the planning board, and so on and so forth.
So is it 20% of the owners? Is it based on how much the size of their property, or?
It says signed by the owners of 20% or more of the area, either of the lots or land included in the proposed change. So it depends on the size or the configuration.
So, okay.
So that's a state level statutory provision that applies to any zoning change, historic designation. This has been in the municipal land use law all along, correct?
That's correct.
So I think that needs to be spelled out, what the protest, what is it called again, the protest provision needs to be explained, what that is, not just the number, but the entire verbiage of what that is should be in the ordinance.
So the zoning code examination subcommittee talked about that, and it doesn't seem to make sense to be copying and pasting things from state statute into a local ordinance, especially because state statute could change and then you have to go back and revise your ordinance. Whereas if you simply cite it, if you pop that into Google, you'll get the municipal land use law, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to know. And we have received protest letters for various designations in the past.
Well, I'm not sure that anybody during this last round of the historic designations, kind of everything we went through, nobody knew about the provision protest or the protest provision.
Right, and now it's in there, and if you research it, there it is.
Okay, but it's not, wait, 1 second, can I finish talking, please, and give you the respect?
Sure.
Thank you. My apologies. Yeah, thank you. I think that we should make it as clear as possible for our residents, and I think that we should lay out the entire provision, all the verbiage. So I understand your point of view and that you don't think it's necessary, and I do think it's necessary. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels about it, but I think it's, I think we should take a vote on how we feel about it.
Personally, do you think it's necessary as a planner to have that kind of transparency when we had 153 homes designated in the middle of the night without any previous discussion with the owners of those homes, which caused a field day in here, and they politicized the HPC, which we never want to politicize police, HPC, et cetera. What do you personally think that you have more comfort just telling what it is? I mean, this goes back to a point where I was voting against arbitrarily not letting someone tear down their home, giving them their legal right to tear down the home if they bought it and it was not historical, without a clear path to arbitration or mediation versus litigation only. So when I think about this, I just trying to understand, personally, do you think that clarity is better for transparency reasons for the people of our township?
In my experience, having, facilitated historic preservation ordinances in another municipality and, assisted the protest provision process, the municipality where I was working did spell out the protest provisions within the ordinance. It does, it provides.
Why did you take that transparency out?
This is, again, as I mentioned at the top of this is the result of the zoning code examination subcommittee. So
who's on that zoning subcommittee?
I don't have the full list of membership in front of me, but that's something I think that you all can we can assist in identifying the membership.
It's a decision to be made.
And again, yes,
that was the recommendation.
Correct. This is just a recommendation ordinance. We followed their recommendation. The township committee has the ability to modify or amend or change the proposal for you. But to finalize the answer to your question, in my experience as a municipal employee in facilitating this, it does assist municipal employees in assisting homeowners when they come in with questions if it is presented within the ordinance, because typically municipal staff wind up having to explain what that provision is, and then and there can be missteps in kind of being the messenger in this process. So it can be improved to provide the clarity up front.
I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. You and I did have a conversation. I was concerned about things getting out of sync. As was just mentioned, if the state rule changes, then the ordinances is stale. And two things. First of all, you said this is something that is rather unlikely to change, but things happen. But even beyond, but more importantly, you said that if it spelled it out along with the number but said as amended, then that would mean that if the state did change, that would automatically take precedence in that time until we got around to fixing the ordinance to be back in sync. So based on that, and I didn't see any reason not to spell it out.
Yeah, and that, just to finalize that point, that was a recommendation that I had pending confirmation of, legal to confirm that that is an acceptable approach, to cite it as amended.
Said, are you okay with that?
I am okay with it. I'm also okay with, spelling, I mean, it's really up to this committee. I mean, the fact that if it's totally spelled out and there's a change to statute, I mean, Graham's a great planner, and I'm sure our township planner at the time will say, hey, there's been a revision to the statute, we need to update our ordinance. Those things are published. It is okay to list it as amended, and the reason why that's okay is because the statute's there, and when you pull it up, you'll get the most recent version of it, so nobody would be, have wrong ideas. So either way is good. It's really what this committee wants. I think I don't make the decisions. I think that there's two separate opinions up here, and I think each has its own validity. And I think it's up to this committee to decide. But I'm okay legally with either.
I think we should also spell out the statute. And in addition to that, on letter C, a public hearing may be scheduled for a regular or special meeting of the commission. I think we should change that to it will be scheduled. That's one thing that I noticed. And the other, letter I, why are we changing it from 60 days to 35 days for the turnaround? From the referral to the planning board.
I believe that's to create consistency with the current requirements for referral of ordinances to the planning board, but I can confirm that for you. And I'll have that confirmation.
I think I remember you explaining that
Yes.
that way.
And then to
Sure.
to Mayor Romano's point, is there a reason that may?
Yeah,
cannot
I think
be?
that can certainly be modified, the public hearing note, the may versus shall.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Those are the changes.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, we'll facilitate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Graham, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Great job.
Next steps with that? What are the next steps with this?
We're gonna get the ordinance.
We're gonna,
revised.
I mean, does it go back to the zoning code board, or does it just come
No,
directly
I think
here?
it just comes directly to us.
Does it come directly here? That's right.
Zoning
So,
applicant.
but just, do
Sorry.
we have any time frame? Is that something that can happen, next meeting, 2 meetings from now? What's your sense on that?
So I think it depends if the committee is otherwise fine with the ordinance as it would be amended based on your recommendations here, then we can place it on the agenda as an introduction. Otherwise, if you want to see those amendments again, we can place it on the agenda as old business.
I'd rather go as an ordinance for first reading.
Is there consensus from the committee that we just put it on for first reading given those amendments?
Yeah, I'm all for the transparency.
Yeah, can we just, Graham, can you do a quick turnaround on those so we can see them before they go into the packet, just to make sure that we can. If there is anything that, great.
Thank you. Okay, new business, Mr. Graham, Mr. Petto, zoning application and definitions.
Sure. Good evening, once again, everyone. Graham Petto, Township Planner. So this ordinance, again, for your benefit this evening, is another product of the Zoning Code Examination Subcommittee. This is another, we've kind of broken these up so that they're a little bit more digestible. This is another proposed ordinance amendment to the definitions chapter of the Township's DRZ. We have a couple of tweaks to definitions to create more consistency throughout the ordinance, to the floor area ratio for non-residential and multifamily buildings, which previously was not contained. We did not have a reference to multifamily in that definition. We're creating a definition for shopping centers, of which there is not presently a definition for shopping centers, even though we have the shopping centers within the township, and a couple of other standards in that regard. We've also one of the prior amendments to the ordinance regarding the prevailing front yard setback, which we adopted last year, removed an exemption for small covered porticos or covered entries to encroach into a required front yard by 4 feet. We're restoring that provision because it's created a lot of logistical nightmares, and a lot of folks are getting referred to the zoning board when really they're just seeking to cover their front entryway. So a couple things like that. So this is really a much more technical edit, but any questions, if anyone has anything directly, happy to entertain.
What's that? Well, how do you, just quickly, how did you define shopping center?
Sure, I can read through. So it's a group of, and this is a brand new definition because we did not have one. A group of multiple commercial uses developed on the same property that are integrated in site design through elements such as common site access, circulation and parking areas, such as in strip malls, indoor shopping mall developments, and regional shopping facilities. Shopping centers commonly contain retail sale and retail service uses, may contain other commercial uses. Shopping centers contain 2 commercial uses with a minimum total gross floor area of 25,000 square feet, or at least 3 commercial uses. And this is really to create consistency with your parking standards, because you have a parking standard for shopping centers, but we didn't know what that was. So we've created now a definition for the zoning officer and other administrators of your development regulations to say, this is what a shopping center is, and this is what the parking requirement shall be.
Right, and is that that's the common definition?
This is a very common definition, yes, standard.
Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have a consensus to go forward? Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. District Management Corporation Board of Trustees, Deputy Mayor?
Sure. So those of you that don't know, the District Management Corporation is also known as the SID. The SID places a tax directly on businesses, or rather commercial landlords in town. There are some commercial landlords that don't live in town, therefore they don't have a vote for township committee members. And the way the SID board is currently structured, the township committee appoints the members. And so if you look at it through that lens, in some cases, it's literally taxation without representation. Therefore, I suggest that we restructure the SID board so that some of the members of the board, and this should make up the majority of the members, quite honestly, should be voted on by those that are affected by the tax. Now, if the commercial landlord wants to assign that voting right to the actual business that's leasing it, we can probably have a provision for that, and I would suggest maybe doing so. And we could still have a couple seats that would be appointed by the township committee. But if the whole idea is that businesses are paying this tax and they're supposed to derive some benefit from this SID, then they really should have more of a role in deciding who's going to govern that SID. So that's my take on it, because I do think it's taxation without representation at this point.
Committee on Purpose, do you have any?
I agree with Deputy Mayor Sakamondi, and I think that we are so far away from the DMDA that conversation, to make a comparison, I'm fully aware of where the ended up, the DMDA, and what the failings of it were at the time. And I think that we do have a strong executive director. I think that we have a strong SID, and I don't think that the comparison of what happened to the DMDA at that time and the voting can be compared to what would happen now if we went back. And I think that it is being represented, it's representation without taxation. It just is. There's no way around it. So I think it needs to be changed. And I also know why, because I voted for the SID in 2020, and I know why we chose to have it be appointed into town hall. It was kind of like we were correcting what had happened to the DMDA, but now we are 4 years from that point, and the SID looks very different. I mean, completely different than the DMDA did at its final years. And so I don't share in any of the concerns that it would fall back to the state of the DMDA in its final years, if I'm clear on that. So I think we should restructure the way that the board is formed.
It may be interesting, at least for me to know why it was formed the way it was formed due to the, I don't want to say the failed DMDA, but the failed DMDA. Why was it put in that format?
Why was it appointed?
Yes.
So I think, well, I know that it was appointed because so at 2017, like the TC didn't even know that they had needed to have a representation on the DMDA. Like there was no oversight. Nobody was talking about the DMDA. Nobody was paying attention to it at all. And we wanted to make sure that that didn't happen again. But we did not have a full-time executive director at that time. And it had just kind of, people stopped paying attention. And so we felt in that moment that it needed really strong oversight from the TC as it was forming and to make sure that that didn't happen and that people were paying attention to it. I think everybody is paying attention to the SID now. So I'm not concerned that it would just, that there would be no oversight. And we'd still have some TC members sitting on the board, right?
Yeah.
It would just make it so that the people that were paying into it would be able to vote instead of the 5 of us appointing who would sit on the board.
So you're the only one on it?
Well, I'm the liaison to the TC.
Right, so you're the only one.
So, you know,
So
just
are we
from,
proposing there be 2 now, or?
Well, we could, I mean, I think what we wanted is to have a discussion about this, and if we can come to consensus that the majority of the board should be voted on by those paying the tax, then I think we can look and decide, okay, well, there should be, you know, either 1 or 2 TC members on there, and then, you know, maybe you have 1 or 2 other appointed positions, as long as the majority of the board is elected by the businesses.
I just have 2 points. First of all, I'm hesitant when the whole fact of whether the SID is legitimate is being litigated or mediated or arbitrated, whichever way we go in the courts. I'm not sure that this is the right time to make any changes to its structure. And secondly, we still do as the town fund part of the SID. So I think we need more than, you know, 1 or 2 members.
Well, maybe
on the
that's
board.
something we should rethink.
no, that's a good point, Michael. I mean, I sit on the TC, on the liaison to the TC for the SID, and the work that they're doing and the turnout for all of the events, and just off of Founding Day, off of Ladies Night Out, off of all of the events they throw in this summer. You know, I think it is an important tool for our township. I'm all for transparency. I'm all for having representation for those who are paying the tax. What I'd like to understand, because it's been changed and not on a whim, just go and change or implode it without having some type of data-based decision-making process in place. I mean, there's a lot of quants here that can also look at it and understand how, you know, it's done and compare it and what the positives and negatives of it are. You know, I just hate doing something in a rush without having that substance to make a real decision off of. That being said, and I do know we're in litigation, et cetera, and mediation and whatnot. I just don't see, how to change it in the midstream of that.
Well, you could enact it so that the change takes place at the end of the year when,
Yeah,
the
so
budget
we
would
would
have to
have-
be approved and everything
I
else.
mean, we'd have plenty of time to do a overview and have an independent person look at it and tell us before we implode it, because I'm telling you, they're doing great things out there, they're helping businesses with their websites. They are really making a difference, and I know there's parts where people are embracing it, and if someone doesn't embrace it, where is that, a better chance of cooperation? I just think we need more data before I would vote to blow it up.
What sort of data would you specifically want?
Well, I'd want some decision-making, some data based on the operational efficiency of it. The meeting, is it meaningful to the town? Because I see it every week, every 2 weeks when I go to the board. And I'm out there looking and watching how the businesses are responding to it. As a small business, listen, this goes back to my point of the myopic view of people who don't run businesses. Amazon's eating businesses lunch, guys. These businesses have no chance. So what the CID's doing is they're putting them online. They're helping them work with Amazon. They're helping them work with online centers. There's just so much that's going on. And I mean, thank God for the paper mill that the restaurants are staying in business with those seats. When you think about these businesses that don't have a presence and what we can offer them and support them, I just don't see it disconnected yet.
Can I just add one thing? I think we still have a property owner vacancy on the board, right? I think there's still property owner. So, so we've got, people that want to be represented on the board and have a say, but yet we can't fill a property owner seat for over a year.
There's a reason why.
Well,
So I just
When
wanna
they
make
just shoot
clear,
ourselves-
I wanna make clear that, I do not wanna blow up the CID. That this is not about blowing up the CID, this is not about, and I have a small business in town, so we're directly, so like I know the value of it, and that is not why I'm proposing to do this, but on an ideological, just from like an ideological viewpoint, I think it's really important to give the people that are paying into it, the people that are paying into it from the town, the $50,000, and I'm not recommending that that goes away either, that they have a voice by electing us. And I think that the people that pay the tax that don't live in town but own property, that they should have a voice too in the board that's representing them. So I don't, because it's like, you're like using this language about blowing it up and getting rid of it, and that is not my intention at all, and so that is not the conversation that we're having.
On the other hand,
Well,
I
then-
would hate to shoot ourselves in the foot, given our legal case.
yes.
I would hate
That I
to see
agree with
that
too.
used against us in the legal case as evidence as to why the CID should not exist, despite the fact that I
Right,
understand
well,
you're
it
in
seems
favor of
like,
it.
it seems like there's consensus, I mean, it feels like this that there's not support.
I think Mr. King.
Yes.
And
I just
Tara,
wanna jump in, I mean, my legal opinion would be that if we adopted an ordinance, and I'm not saying which way to go, it could move the litigation, because the challenge is the adoption of the original ordinance, so if we pass another ordinance, I wouldn't use litigation as a factor in this, I don't think it sways either way, the challenge is to the original ordinance and how it's passed, which some may have a different opinion, but but that's not.
Well, I think that's important, because if we made this change to the governance structure and we changed the ordinance, it could make the pending legal case that we're dealing with moot, and therefore it could go away, and then we would have a new improved set of leadership.
It may
for the
not,
city.
it may not.
It may not, but it could, right? So you're saying one way or another.
Or it would
we should
create
let
a
that-
new challenge, or just create a new challenge, a new
Yes.
litigation.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah, is
Campbell,
there-
I didn't understand what you said in terms of
So
it
one
wouldn't matter either.
So one of the arguments in the pending litigation is that the ordinance was not adopted properly. So if we were to re-adopt it properly, we did adopt it properly, but one of the allegations is that it was not adopted properly. So if we were to adopt an ordinance potentially, and I have to look at all the issues, there would have to be a new challenge to the readoption.
Yeah, so
Wouldn't that, I don't, just on this one point, wouldn't that make that first objection to the first passing of the ordinance not even an issue, right, like to what?
I would say that we could ratify the actions of the first governing body as part of that ordinance, perhaps. I would want to look at it a little more closely.
Yeah, so Tara, maybe I just don't understand the structure that's proposed. The current structure that we have in place today, are we suggesting to get rid of the executive director and the entire
No.
board, et cetera?
No.
So what exactly are you proposing? Because,
Like, I can tell you, I'm proposing, I'm not exactly, unless you wanna go.
or Frank,
Frank,
either
So
one.
what I'm proposing is we change the structure of the board, so you can still have the executive director. You can have one or two members of the TC sit on the board, and then we'll have a number of representatives that are voted on by the businesses or the property owners that are affected by the tax. And if we need, I don't know, if you feel that we need a liaison from a different department or something, we could certainly look at that and add that. But the idea is that the majority of the board is comprised of individuals that were voted in there by those affected by the tax. Because otherwise, if we continue on the current path, it is taxation without representation. And I think that goes against, your
100%.
beliefs of transparency, et cetera.
Right, so from that standpoint, Frank, is it possible to do it, and as we're in this litigation, to bring one representative or a representative from any of the business districts onto the board, understand how that affects the board, and not stop all the good process that's in flow right now without all of the right in the middle of a litigation, all of the I guess, I don't want to say dysfunction, because there is no dysfunction I see, but I want to do it methodically with fact-based decision making.
I don't see how it would stop any of the progress if we do something at the end of the year when the SID budget rolls over. Next year, there's, members that would have to be reappointed anyway. It seems like that's the time to do it.
I think one way that you can find out if this is necessary or not is to talk to the property owners. And involve them at this point and say,
Yes.
hey, property owners.
Yeah, I agree.
Would you like to have a voice?
Yeah.
Would you like to have a vote
100%.
on who's sitting on this, where,
So can we do that study first so we can
We could do that
understand what
now.
the feedback is?
We could,
Invite them.
yeah.
I just have a question for the committee. How would this election take place?
Well, the old DMDA did it by like a ballot. I mean, it wouldn't be in a general election. It would just, the executive director would hold, I think the executive director would hold, or the chairman of the board would hold an election. Why not?
I mean, you could mail
There's
the ballots
definitely a
out,
way to do it.
certified
Or we
mail.
could establish, instead of going this way, go the other way and establish some number of seats, and I don't know the proportion, that are elected by property owners who don't live in town, recognizing the fact that property owners who do live in town have voted for the TC. So I don't know what the proportion is of property owners living in town versus those that don't. We could look at that. Maybe maybe add a couple of seats to represent those interests and leave the rest of it
Sure, if
as
you wanna
is.
do property owners that don't live in town. I don't know that I don't know that.
Well, that's
there's
who, that's
that many
the
people. That's-
taxation without
Okay, so
representation
you
of
take,
license.
that's
Those are
fine, you
people
take
that
property
tax.
owners that don't live in town.
Get a vote, get a seat or two, whatever the numbers, make sense to be. Right? And the rest of the board is appointed by the TC because the property
No,
owners.
I don't know that the property owners, not everybody in town that votes wants to sit on the TC board. Like, that's why they vote for somebody that does want to. So we wouldn't say property owners, you have to sit on the board.
No,
They
they
get
could
to-
pick it would be a
Right, of
seat
the
that they
people
would
that-
vote on.
Right, okay, so that people would be like, when it comes up, who's up for what board seats, these are the people that wanna sit there. Then the
So there's, just like in the other thing, we reserved spots for different school districts. In this one, we would reserve some spots that are voted on by property owners who don't live in town. And the rest of the ones would be appointed as they are today by the TC. That eliminates the taxation without representation.
Can I just jump in real quick? I'm sorry, because we keep saying taxation without representation, but given the fact that these property owners don't live in town currently, we're taxing them for the township, for the school board, things like that, so I just don't wanna go too far down that road
That's
without, with, like,
That's
that
a
we're
good
in,
point.
we're in
That's a good
danger
point.
of
That's a
the
valid-
That's a
taxation.
valid point. That's a valid point.
But this is dangerous, I mean,
I'm
I
not, I'm
think
not
it's
making
real.
I'm not
I
making a
don't
comment,
think
I'm
you-
just, because everybody's saying it's dangerous taxation without representation. That currently happens based on the way that the.
But this is specifically for the city, specifically just
I'm
for
not
a
arguing that.
designated district of these properties.
Do we
I'm
wanna,
not
do we wanna
arguing that.
take a
I think
consensus or?
I'd like to request that we actually have a study done to understand what the veracity of today's structure is and how we can improve it to assuage everyone's, feelings and make sure that we have a path forward and not do it in the middle of litigation.
I don't know who
Task
would do
somebody
that
with that.
study.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who would do that study and what that study would. Like.
Well, I would defer to the township administrators at VA to understand who would do that study if we wanted that to have full transparency on how it's gonna be affected.
Probably you'll do
Charlie will do it.
Look, I mean, I think first and foremost, what you want is some just additional information, right? Property owners, how many don't live here, things like that. Maybe some of the, to the point of maybe having some of the concerns from the property owners expressed and understood, so that there's at least a little bit more information around it.
And I just wanna make one point, if you can't find, like, I'm curious why you can't fill that property owner seat. Like, that's upsetting to me, like alarming, just.
I think that goes back to the point that if a lot of them don't live here, then it's gonna be difficult for them to fill that board seat, so.
Well, they might not have been
But
aware
there
that
are
that's.
some that do live.
That could be too, Mr. Secretary, that could be too. I'm just saying, so I think that's some of the information that can be gathered in this.
I know when I was on the SID board last year, Mr. Grillo was having a hard time filling that spot and it's still vacant, so. I guess we just table this for a later discussion.
Okay.
Okay, and Citizen Crime Public Safety Advisory Committee, Deputy Mayor?
Sure. So, I mean, the idea behind this is sort of similar to the Citizen Affordable Housing Committee. We would have representatives from various parts of town. And ideally, we'd have some members of the police force that would sit on the committee. And then, maybe one or two TC members. And the idea would be, actually, I have some notes here. The idea would be that this board could work to help innovate with the police, to talk about new strategies, new technologies, et cetera, that might help fight crime. This board could also help be a liaison to the community, into trying to educate them about, what the department is doing. They could also potentially interface with the neighborhood watches. Right now, some of the neighborhood watches are successful, but it seems like there's a single individual that's sort of the head of all of them. And that individual seems to be a choke point in terms of communicating information. So, that might help expand this out. But I mean, we've heard from a number of residents, they'd like to have a committee where residents get to work with the police department to share ideas, talk about concerns, et cetera. And, I see no reason why we shouldn't have an advisory committee in that regard.
I agree.
I think this is something that we could bring in at the same time as the community policing, when that is ready to
Well,
start.
we haven't even discussed that.
Well, the community policing, we have been. That's.
The two officers that are. The two new officers that are coming on are
Yeah,
community policing,
they're community
right, so we have discussed it. Personally, I think that it's a must-have in these guys to interact. They could come in at the same time as the two policing officers, but there's so many great ideas out there by the general public. I mean, Miss Urso with Nixle, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, why we don't have that in place, I'm still confused. We need Nixle per Miss Urso, and just other ideas like parking cars in certain places, cameras. I think it's a great idea to come in at the same time.
So then maybe we take this opportunity, figure out the structure, get the
Absolutely.
ordinances in place, and when are the 2 officers slated to be starting? That role?
So again, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about the police department. And one thing is, I just want to remind everybody on May 29th, the police department will be here at 7:30 PM to interface with the public. And that will be via Zoom as well. And that the township committee has also stated that they would like to hold a closed session. I believe there's consensus on that with the police chief to discuss the concerns that were brought up here tonight. I think that just to kind of answer the question directly first is the police department has three people in the academy that are graduating at the end of this year. And a lot of this information will also come out at that public information session. 3 individuals that are graduating at the end of this month, 2 officers that are going to be considered by the township committee on June 18th to be hired. And then they'll enter the academy. And I think that the police chief has also been working on the community policing or community service unit, as had been previously approved and described by the township committee when they authorized the table of organization increase to 60 from 58 with those 2 additional officers. Now, those 2 additional officers may not be the actual people, but I think the idea is that the timing of them coming on and the ability to move people to the department to help provide that community service unit, I think, which is a resource that we've been missing within the police department, and something that is important to for a lot of reasons, not only the interaction between the police department and the public, but also I think it will help with this. I've heard a lot tonight about the feeling of unsafe and feeling unsafe. And I think that sort of a better interaction point and sort of a focused interaction point with the police department through that unit benefits that feeling as well. Because I'm just gonna be quite frank up here, as I've heard what was being discussed. I am not disagreeing with anything that anybody has said, or that these innovative ideas or some changes and things like that aren't needed. But I think that at times, and I believe it was Mr. Wilk who said, and I'm sorry he's still not here, because he stated that regardless of whether the numbers are flat or down, if the feeling is that we feel unsafe, that we have to do more about it, shock and awe, whatever it is. I just want everybody to sort of recognize, again, not that there's not changes that need to be made or things that can be done or ideas that we have, or the fact that, this town spent $1.5 million on license plate readers, or that we've spent, 43% more this year in burglary patrol than we did last year. But that idea of chasing a feeling is going to be very difficult. I just want that to be understood. So with that, that's the direct and indirect answer to your question.
Wait, did you say when the community policing was?
No, I did
start?
not. I'm gonna leave that to the
I
chief.
thought
I'm not gonna
was-
take
that
all the
was the
words out of his mouth. No, he asked when those officers were gonna be hired. June 18th.
No, I think he said, when are they gonna start, right?
Yes, June 18th is when they're gonna be hired.
But
When
when
those
are they-
officers.
when is the unit gonna start?
No, but I just said that
We don't know.
just because
We don't know.
those two officers have allowed movement within the police department.
So if that's gonna start June 18th, why not get working on this so that we can have this start with those officers?
Again, if you're gonna have a direct conversation as a committee with the police
Right,
chief, I think it's.
let's wait and talk
Let's
to them.
bring it up during
Yeah.
the.
Sounds like a good idea.
So we're good?
Yes.
Okay, can we take a 3-minute break before we do public comment?
Yeah.
Thank you. We're gonna get started with our final public comment.
Picking up now, one of those stinger plates? Round five.
Okay. This public comment period is allowed for final comments from the community. Excuse me. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Maybe wait until our township attorney's back.
He's here, we're good.
Wait for Alex or?
Good start. Fill them in.
Again, my name is Jeffrey Feld. First, I'd like to just incorporate my comments I've sent to you that we haven't answered. I don't know where to begin. The city is a creature of state law. Best practices requires each district to have its own separate SID. I've been saying that for X years. One of the things I asked you, did you all receive the audit of the SID for 2023? I think we need to return back to the statement that was read by our former mayor who created this SID. She used a word today, controlled entity. A controlled entity because every member is appointed. I knew I should try to bring it down. If you read the statute, 4 of you were not involved in creation. The statute was clear that members who are getting taxed elect the board. Mr. Stoller, I was a small businessman for more than 25 years. I was involved when Orange tried to create a SID. Mr. Cohn, you need to introduce yourself to Jeff Bueller and ask him about my conversation with him in July 2008, where to have a Main Street, New Jersey application, you need a valid SID. If you go back to September 1st, 2020, when I appeared before this body for the first time, I told everyone there was a Trojan horse. 4 of you were not here. This is an issue that's been going. When Judge Moore tells you to mediate because he sees my smiling face, I invalidate ordinances. There are not that many people in this state that had judges declare ordinances as being unconstitutional. I have done that. There's not that many people in the state where the Department of Community Affairs say, contact Mr. Feld. I'm the one that shut down the UEZ program in 2007. While I was speaking to the state UEZ board, Orange was serving my family with a municipal complaint. That happened a week after the mayor got arrested by the FBI. I have a history. I don't want to hurt you people. There's a reason why the original ordinance does not have a dissolution clause in it. When you look at the website of the DCA as to the SID, it says there should be a sunset provision. It doesn't have it in here. I renew my offer to meet with you in closed executive session so I can explain why our proposal was reasonable, all the evidence that supports it, and what's the case law. And if you can post the Rams rent control report, I think the public needs to read it because it affects about our affordable housing. Thank you.
Bill Kirsch, Milburn resident. I can only speak about the SID as a resident, as someone who was at the meetings. I think when Committeewoman Prupus is speaking about a time when really the old SID really blew itself up. I mean, there was tremendous amount of chaos. There was infighting. There was physical fighting. One of the things I saw from the outside was I think the business owners, as they should be, are so busy with their businesses. There are sometimes a small number of them who get involved or brought here about one issue or another. But basically, I think my feeling is that they want to run their businesses and they are more than willing to have something like the new SID that was made, give them help. So I'm not sure where this idea came from about no taxation without representation. I'm sure there are many things that we all pay taxes to that we have very indirect representation, if any. We don't worry about it. We may have indirect representation. So I'm not sure how many business owners don't live in town. I'm not sure if they would end up with a more direct representation than other ones who do live in town and voted for township committee members, and that might cause some resentment. I would just really caution that, partly because from what I can see, the SID is working very well. I see the promotions. I see the emails that I get that I never used to get about what's going on in town, where it's happening, that can attract me to things. And I would say when you do examine this, just be very careful because things seem to be working very well. And I think it's maybe a case where representation, well, like I said, let the business owners run their businesses. I'm not sure they want to get involved on the level of these promotions and things helping them out. So I would say just really work slowly on this, work with caution, see if you need to change anything, and if so, what. But I would not want to see any kind of large restructuring. I don't know why you'd even want to do that. I'm not sure where this came from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Baxter, Short Hills again. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things that Mr. Soller said about the 7 million ordinance for the paper mill. Well, he said three things really. One was questioning the value, or as if we're questioning the value of the paper mill to the town. I don't think anyone here is questioning the value of the paper mill. We see the value of the paper mill for the town. What we're really looking at is what incremental value is the town getting for their $7 million investment, because we can choose not to do it. And so one claim is that it's self-funding. I think that's clearly false. The parking lot, 1.8 million, will return 50,000 a year. The rest of it, the 5.2 million, doesn't return anything. So that part of it's not self-funding, and the parking lot is about a 2.5% return, which is less than treasuries now. So yes, you could argue it's self-funding, but self-funding at a very low rate for only that part of it. So the remaining part, or the remaining point that Mr. Soller raised was the capital improvements that they're going to do is going to go on their balance sheet. So it'll ostensibly improve the value of the property. But again, I don't think that's a benefit that can accrue to the town because of the very special nature of the property. If we were to ever sell it, we would have to find another theatre company that could actually pay for those $40 million worth of improvement. We won't find one. So it's probably just the value of the land, which is what's on the books right now. So I don't think the balance sheet situation improves with these capital developments for the town. And in fact, I think the town shouldn't be in the business at all. I mean, we bought the property reluctantly from them in order to save them from a financial situation 16 whatever years ago. So why don't we just sell it back? They're in a much better cash situation now. They could just buy it back off the town. They can run it however they want then, and we'll collect the same amount of money, by the way, or even a little bit more because of the property taxes. So that seems to be a better solution to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I totally agree with Jonathan. Sorry, Jean Pasternak. I mean, Ben, you talk about misinformation, okay? What exactly do you mean? You stood here and heard from really smart people who are well-educated, know how to do analysis better than you and better than me, okay? And I'm sorry, they have a very legitimate point to make and you're not listening, okay? I don't think any of you really have this information before you voted. And I think it's high time that these people that are brilliant have a chance to be heard and listened to, not just come up here and talk to themselves, but actually, would you please listen to them? This is serious stuff. I mean, the forest through the trees is not being viewed. I said this directly to Ben and my husband did too. This deal, you have to think, do we want to be in the theater business as a township? Why would we want to do that? We have so many other things that are so difficult and so complex, yet we're going to jump into the theater business now. For what? What is the purpose? Like, why are we doing this? To satisfy whom? I mean, I know there's a slight conflict when someone who runs our town is sitting on the board. I mean, it's hard. You befriend people, you become close to them. It's hard. I understand that. But I think that's why you have to have a dispassionate, very clear, data-driven approach to evaluating all these purchases and all this stuff that you're approving. You need to have data from people that know what they're doing. I mean, there's an Oprah of a memo that came from Mike Stutz, an email to Ian Mount, board member, Ted Burke, board member, and Alex, okay, back in January of 2024, the 12th, before they made the presentation. We have our next, hi guys, we have our next Township Engagement Committee meeting next Wednesday at 10 a.m. In preparation, I have Eco Salt Solutions or whatever, update the economic impact study that was done in 2022. Our numbers are even better. Can you give it a review prior to Wednesday so we can discuss your comments and any changes or edits we want to make? I mean, what? Yeah, you hire a consultant, but now you're telling them, well, let us tell you what we wanted to say so we can get our point across. No, this is taxpayer money. You cannot be operating with this kind of stuff, okay? Sorry. I'm so totally against this, as you've heard others say the same. The other thing is, I just had dinner about 3 or 4 times in town in the last couple of months, and I think my bill was well under $30. I'll tell you where. The sushi place downtown, the diner, and tonight at La Strada. So go for the under $30 dinners. They're good. Last thing I want to ask about that I forgot to is about code enforcement. I happened to run into somebody, I already had talked to the zoning board chair, but this person did as well. And he, again, emphasized they go to all this trouble to put rules in place, but they're not enforced. And I see it. I've talked to you directly about my situation next to my home. We got to get more enforcement. We just have to do it. Thank you.
Christine Best again. Annette, I wanted to thank you for clarifying that the person that I was speaking about is possibly moving out. I mean, it seems like by not telling me that you don't know anything about that, being the Democratic ex-chair, I find that's a little off. Yes, chair, but that still means you're involved. So anyhow, that's just my personal opinion. And again, Tara, my apologies. So I want to just go back to, I don't even know what to talk about because there were so many things that I wanted to jump in on, but just, I want to go back to the crime because that's what I was going to focus on. You know, I talked about it last time, and this is like really the last meeting was the first meeting you guys took it seriously. I brought it up a few times. I even, you know, wrote a whole email, and thank you again, Ben and Michael, for responding. And what Tony Wolk said was very valid, 100%. I don't think it's imaginary. I think we have to really look at the types of crimes. You know, I think they're more serious crimes, and I may be wrong, but I don't have access to that data, and I don't want to like load you down with more over requests. But I think what I would really like to see a 360-degree review done. They do it in corporations all the time, maybe back in my heyday, and have the police officers that report into the police chief do a review of their department and their managers and what they actually think. Because, you know, I actually talk to these guys on the street. They're so nice. And I'm always happy to see their face. They're just down-to-earth guys. They're always the person who's going to help you. And I'd like to hear what they have to say about the department. And I think it would be very valuable, and it wouldn't cost that much money. There's a lot of companies that come in and do that type of thing pretty easily. And again, Frank, I really appreciate the fact that you've addressed this and gone out to a lot of residents and talked to different people. Thank you so much, and for your perspective on it. I do really fully 100% agree with what you said. And I would like to see if maybe even we can just put out $1 million or $500,000 for you know, 4 to 6 month run and have 22 officers. And Alex, I think you talked about hiring new people that are in the police academy. But the biggest thing for me is, and of course this is rumor, I heard that people don't want to work at night. So that's why we don't have people on. And I don't know if that's true. You could clarify for me. Oh, no, I'm just saying, I asked in the last meeting, how many people worked at night. No one clarified that for me. So I said 30. That's not information that's going to be given out. Oh, well, I understand that I understand that, but
you keep asking, you keep saying, I'm just.
Okay. But it feels like there's not that many people running around, because the cars that were parked were there for many weeks, so I was a little concerned about it. So, and then again, I really think that we should maybe put together an ordinance about Amazon, because they have gig workers that are, a lot of them are like felons, they don't even do background checks, and they are, I mean, I'm just saying, like, we don't know, there's all these random cars driving through my neighborhood all the time. And I wish I had more time to talk, but thank you.
Charlie Van Barrett, 27-year resident of Millburn Short Hills. I think something pertinent happened last night, right along the lines of what we're talking about. My two daughters came home from college. I went out for a walk last night after dark, and they called me up and asked me if I'd come and pick them up because they didn't feel safe. And I know you addressed that, Alex. It's a feeling, and how do you address a feeling? But they didn't have that feeling 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They have it now. And so, I mean, I think there's a legitimate concern. And I think if they, during their walk, would have seen 1 or 2 patrol cars come by with the lights on, which I admit I've seen now in the poet section. I see them going around. They don't have the flashing lights. They have the lights on steady, so you could tell that it's a patrol. But I think if my daughters would have seen that a little bit more frequently, they'd have felt safe enough to finish their walk. I don't mind going out and picking them up, but that wasn't my point. You know, I think people need to feel safe in town. I don't think they do. Thank you.
Should I say my name again? Anyway, it's me again.
Excuse me, we really can't hear with all the background noise. Thanks.
So I didn't mention this to anybody, but yesterday, when I was walking my dog, which I do regularly, I saw a black car in my neighborhood, which is South Mountain. All the windows were dark, including the windshield. It was a black car. I tried to see who was in the car, but the individual turned the car around and zipped away. So I don't know if there is any laws about having all dark windows in a car, but I don't know what can be done about that. I don't know how it works, but I did see it in my neighborhood. And I kind of confronted the person and they went. I didn't tell you about that. Thank you.
Photograph the license.
No,
We'll do it on the front license plate too.
it was, you know, it happens quick, you know what I mean?
Hello, Perry Urso. I appreciate this second comment because sometimes I'm not able to get here, but thank you for your time. So sadly, our hearts go out to Officer Lyons. It's actually one officer that we didn't know. And to be quite honest, in 30 years, we really don't know any of the police officers anymore. They don't walk in the neighborhood. They don't ride their bikes anymore. So there's like almost no I don't know. I just want you to know that. As a business owner, we don't know any of the police officers anymore. I agree with the public concerns. But also I think if you're going to be talking to the chief, I would hope that you incorporate some of the police officers because you want to know what do they need, why they're keeping us safe. So we want to keep them safe so they can keep us safe. And I'm sure that's been talked about all the time already. I've been doing this ordinance 256120 dance for nearly 4 years. Bear Property Management put an offer on the table via attorney. What TC members declined our offer? And was there discussion of a counter? Prior to taking action on anything, and I do appreciate the new business, that's what brought me here tonight. I was kind of curious, not so much concerned because this ordinance is out of my control. But I would strongly consider doing a comparison as I currently am, and I've been publicly criticized for filing Oprahs with other towns. It's astonishing what I have found out with other towns. And like I said, I'm in the process of doing a comparison and I strongly advise somebody should do that as well. There are 5 districts, not just Upper Milburn Avenue and not downtown. And I really shouldn't care about the other districts, but I do care about the other districts outside of downtown because we're all orphans. And you'd be fooling yourselves and if you believe that all the other 4 districts are equally, or if not, being, what's the word I want to use, represented outside of the downtown. I asked by way of Oprah, I have been trying to get all events, dates, times, and locations in the CID. I think it's important. It's important to do a comparison. Why now? And if it's something that they do not possess any longer, because that's what I've been told, say it. But in 2021, I did the same exact Oprah, and I was afforded all the events, all the dates, all the times, and all the locations. Lastly, you talked about the property owners and the communities, or commercial property owners that are either out of town, but are our property owners, even residential property owners, are they aware that we're paying $55,000 to your CID executive director's salary? Thank you. Have a good night.
Dan Cannon, 21-year resident. I also serve as the Sons of the American Legion commander here in town. I'm also on the Township Memorial Day Parade Committee. I just want to allow everyone here to know and invite personally, as well as the Township Committee, to join us on the Memorial Day Parade coming up this Monday. There are other activities that are going on about Memorial Day as well. This Thursday evening at 4:30, Scouts, BSA troops 17 and 19 put flags on all the headstones of veterans that have passed over at St. Stephen's as well as over in St. Rose. Then on Monday, we continue doing the same. There is a ceremony, once again, that's usually not highly attended by the public, and I'm not sure why, and that's why I'm here. At 8:30 in St. Stephen's Cemetery, there is led by the American Legion, there's a small graveside remembrance. The Milburn Police Department is there, does a 21-gun salute, as well as the Scouts. Really don't see much public support in those events, that event. In addition, at 9:30, we then march over to St. Rose at 9:30. There's a similar event led by the church there as well. And once again, other than the parishioners of the church, there's not much other representation. So looking for more township representation there, as well as the Memorial Day Parade that starts at 11 a.m. over at Milburn High School. Proud to announce we have 30 organizations, hundreds of marchers. There's going to be flags, there's going to be bands, there's going to be scouts, there's going to be veterans, there's going to be the American Legion, and there's going to be youth organizations. Fantastic compilation of a representation of our town and diversity as well in each one of these. The Desi Club is there, the Chinese Club is marching, so there's a good representation of how our township has changed. We then move over to the Taylor Park, and around, I would say, it's hard to, depending on how the parade goes, at say around 11:50 to 12:15, depending on logistics, we will then have a ceremony. The ceremony there, we're going to have Raymond Wong is our Grand Marshal. He will say a few words about his service. He is a West Point graduate. Also, he served on our Board of Education, as well as our Environmental Committee. So excellent choice. Next, we also have a Milburn Township native who unfortunately died in Pearl Harbor. This individual his name is Chief Water Tender Francis Day. Francis Day died in Pearl Harbor. He was born in 1904 here in Milburn. He was actually 1925, he enlisted, and then died, unfortunately, in Pearl Harbor, saving 15 lives. His body was unidentified for almost 80 years. And due to forensic science, just recently, last month, he was buried in Pearl Harbor. So we're actually going to honor him and his family there with a proclamation and another gift. So I want to invite the entire town to come. It should be a great day, and please join us. Thank you. Thank you.
Online?
Good evening, put your camera on, please. There she is. Hello. You're muted.
Here we go. All right, sorry about that. Good evening, everybody. I'm sure everyone's ready to call it a night and go home. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to get my comments in. First and foremost, my name is Pooja Parikh. I'm a Short Hills resident. Before I get to the business part of my comment, I just wanted to say that in light of Officer Lyons' untimely passing, I want to extend my deepest condolences to the police department and absolutely his family. And, during this really unimaginable time. So I think he had really young kids and a wife. So I'm sure that they're really, really going through a hard time right now. And I, learned that he was very well liked within the department and was a committed police officer and a veteran. So I hope the township will consider a memorable way to honor his life and service to our community. So with that said, the business part of my comment that I wanted to make was, I'm glad to see that there is consideration for this advisory board for the crime and public safety. I think that it's a fantastic way for us to address what's going on in terms of these increases in home burglaries and invasions, and in a more proactive and comprehensive way. I think this board is essential for addressing these surges, which have impacted our community's well-being and safety. During the May 7th meeting, I highlighted the concept of psychological safety in response to residents' concerns about these crimes. Aside from being an active resident, I am also someone who happens to be a licensed mental health professional, and I've seen the changes within many of our community members, myself included. I am more anxious about these break-ins. I think that it's important for us to address it through something like this advisory board. I know that there was some discussion earlier about possibly waiting to start it. I strongly urge that we consider moving forward if this is formed, and to really strongly consider forming this sooner than later, because summer tends to see an increase in these crimes, and with everybody going away, I think for vacation, I think it's going to be even more important that we address it now and at least start to move forward with it. And that way we can start to, consider what we need to do. And I think the workforce study can't do, if there's a survey that, needs impact or perception survey that can't be done, this task force and/or advisory board would be a great way to do that. And I think we could move something forward, because I don't think we should wait to start this in January. This should be something that we consider now with the summer coming. And I think that we need to have a collaborative, proactive, and sort of a direct communication line between police department leadership, our township committee members, and our residents. So, I just want to thank you for listening to me tonight and for your commitment and time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, close public comment. Would like to-
Move to adjourn.
Oh.
Oh, it didn't-
Does anybody want to respond?
I'd like to respond.
Sure.
So Mr. Baxter, you are correct. The $7 million is not self-funding, despite what some members of the TC may try to say. We paid $9 million for the paper mill. The 30-year lease was structured so that that $9 million would get paid back over 30 years. Regardless of the fact that the bond for that may have been paid off, that doesn't mean that, that money shouldn't still be coming to the town. And, if we then try to say, okay, well, we don't have to worry about that because it's already paid off, and, oh, this $7 million is self-funding. I mean, that's just a ridiculous thing to say. And I'm not sure how anyone on this TC could say that with a straight face. Second, I agree the town should absolutely not be in the theater business. Bailing them out once was enough. There's no reason we need to be funding their vanity project. And again, what everyone needs to understand is that paper mill is not necessarily going to pack up and leave. They pay no property taxes. Their lease is relatively inexpensive for what they get out of it. I don't think they're going to pack up and leave. And for people on this committee to say, oh, well, we must do this to protect the restaurants, the revenue to the restaurants. That was never in danger. If the paper mill doesn't do their expensive vanity project, people are still gonna go to the paper mill. They're still gonna watch the shows. People that don't go to the paper mill aren't gonna start going to the paper mill just because it has a 4-story glass atrium. It just boggles the mind that some people on this dais don't understand that. So I agree wholeheartedly with you, Mr. Baxter. Ms. Best, I agree. I think a 360 review, we'll have to find out if the police do some sort of review process, but that is something that's standard in businesses. So that's something we can ask the chief when we meet with him to find out exactly what their review procedures are, because I think that's definitely a good idea. I'm also interested in what you said about the delivery drivers. I would love to know if it would be legal for us to require delivery drivers that operate in the town to at least register their license plate with us so that our police know, okay, this is an Amazon delivery driver versus, this isn't. And that way, if they get a call from someone saying suspicious vehicle, here's the plate number, they can say, oh yeah, that's your local Amazon delivery driver. So we should see if that's something we can legally do. Mr. Bamber, I'm very dismayed that your daughter, who's presumably grown up here, lived here her whole life, comes back from college and now feels unsafe. I think that underscores what we've been saying throughout the night, that the community doesn't feel safe and we need to do something about that. It sounds like there's agreement from the TC to try and take steps to do something. So that's great. Ms. Urso, I agree with you. I'd love to see more officers out and walking around town. Hopefully when we get these community policing officers, we'll start to see more of that. I'd love to answer your questions about the settlement, but I don't think I can because there's ongoing litigation. So when that's all settled and behind us, if it's legal for me to do so, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Ms. Parikh, thank you very much for your comments. I agree with you. I don't think we should wait to form this committee or at least get the structure of it in place. Over the summer, we only have one meeting per month. So if we're going to do this properly and have these be multi-year seats and we have to do it by ordinance, even if we introduced it at the next meeting, we wouldn't be able to pass it until July. And then by the time we go and actually put people on it, it would be August. So I just really think there's no reason to wait. I think we can add in the community policing, when that's ready and available. So with that, that's all I have to say for tonight. Thanks, everyone.
The only thing is that I do agree that the Citizen Crime and Public Safety Advisory Committee, we should get started on that. And I'd like to see that, a draft form of that at our next meeting, at an initial draft. And I don't know who is working on that in terms of drafting it. But I think that she gets started. Who is drafting?
Work with you on that, like we did the other committee.
I think Mr. McDonald might need a little bit more direction on what we want it to look like, I guess.
Well, I can start working with Frank.
And then we have to, don't forget, we have to add it to the volunteer interest form.
Right, well, that's
You
the
know,
last
so
step, but I think that's the
Right,
last
but
step, but I
yeah, but
think
it's the
that,
last step, but it's a long step, to
It's
go
not,
through.
it's a Google form.
I think that Frank and I can at least start discussing
That's fine.
what this would look like.
Absolutely.
And then so that we have something to at least talk about under old business at the next meeting.
Agreed.
Does that sound good?
Yep.
You're good?
Excellent.
Great.
You comment?
No, I certainly feel for Mr. Bambera. My kids are coming home from college too, and that's just not a good deal to have them be walking around unsafe or feel unsafe. Christine Best, good point on the drivers and such. Is there anything we can do to monitor that? Also, too, some of the crime that happened, that's happening is happening in the neighborhood that we do have the extra or the higher security by the residents. So that's a little distressing to me as well. There's something much more something much larger going on. So if they're waiting for the private officers to take their eye off the ball and then breaking into a house while people are sitting there, we need to fix that. And I agree. I'd love to see the citizen security put forth by Frank and Ms. Prupus. Jeff Feld, we appreciate everything you do and all the good information you bring to us. Thank you. And then Mr. Beck, I still think you don't have all the information. I'd love to sit with you and kind of take you through the information that's available and give you, because the 2.5% versus is not the number I came up with, but I'm happy to sit with you and make sure you understand. And if you give me that courtesy, I'd appreciate it. So you have all the information instead of being ginned up and such by somebody or other people. So I appreciate you.
I'm just reading stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming up with that courtesy. And I also too was passed 4-1. So it's 4 people in the dais versus one. And just for the record too, I'm not going to legislate based on WeChat or quid pro quos or any will of a few people. This is for the entire resident base, for all residents that live in the township.
No, I understand that. No, what's the same.
Sir, you're not recognized, sir. You can't speak. You're speaking from the.
So, this, I just want to put that on record. Mr. Cannon, thank you so much for coming out and articulating this events that are taking place. I know I plan on coming to the Memorial Day Parade and participating as much as I can. Also too, there's a service for Officer Lyons, which I hope to see everyone at as well. And there is a GoFundMe for his family. He was a newer officer and such. And there's a PBA is running a GoFundMe page. If you're inclined, I think it's just a power of numbers that will help out. That's it. Thank you.
I'm also interested to see what you guys come up with on this, and agree we should move quickly on that. And of course, some of that is going to be shaped by our meetings with the chief.
Mr. Cannon?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Just a few things regarding 360 review. For the police department does do reviews. There's a accreditation process that they go through and has been presented before the Township Committee before. In addition to the police staffing study providing some of that activity as well. And then as far as the Amazon drivers go, I just got to caution about, I think you're probably better off prohibiting deliveries in the township between certain hours rather than trying to register vehicles, because otherwise it's going to be a nightmare. So, yep. So I think you have to really think about that in a way that is actually feasible and reasonable to enforce. I'd certainly like to speak to Ms. Pasternak about code enforcement. Obviously sometimes there are times that the codes are not enforced, and there are sometimes that the rules are not good. And that feels like the codes are not being enforced. So I think that having a better understanding of that is important. I think that's it.
I guess one thing, if you're gonna pick on Amazon drivers, what's next? Uber drivers? That we don't
I
know?
think that's delivery drivers.
I know. If you're talking about strangers being in town, it could be any.
Well, and can I just, again, the township has an ordinance that says that you can't park on any street between, 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. You could make the delivery window the same thing. If people are getting food at 2:30, I guess,
DoorDash at 2:30.
Again.
One other point I want to make is, before we go, is Richie Seibert. There's that non-emergency number. I know it's been put out there quite a bit. anytime you see something that looks suspicious, we've been told my entire life, growing up, is to say something. So I would encourage you, if you saw it, to call that non-emergency number, call 911. I mean, especially if it's completely against the law, all darked out and no front license plate. There's something going on, and it's better to have the police involved. I mean, I saw a Nissan or something with the same type of thing in 3 different parts of town, driving very suspiciously, and I called the one, and he was very thankful, whoever answered the phone, because, those are the tips that help stop the crime before it occurs.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on this, because this is the second time, and I'm certainly not faulting you, Mr. Seaver, but like, this is the second time I've heard of residents approaching vehicles that they thought were suspicious. Do not suggest that in any way. Again, towards this feeling of safety, just call the police, let them take care of it. They're happy to do so, all right?